Chapter 74. Walking on the familiar streets of Vance, looking at the endless flow of people, the mood is completely different this time. It is still the same sparse crowd, but compared to the tense atmosphere during the Alliance Treaty, it is much better. After we fended off Vance, the shadows behind us disappeared one by one. Other than that silly cow who returned the way he came, the others disappeared into the underground tunnel, obviously heading to the surface. At this moment, while the merchant group is preparing in Vance, I intend to do some private matters. For example, changing that darned broken iron sword and registering a small mercenary group here to make things more convenient. Mercenary group? Us. There's no need for that. Momo is obviously anxious to leave this city. Yes, it will be much more convenient to travel on the surface with the identity of a mercenary. I don't want to serve those humans. Of course, we just need to establish a group and not do any missions. I don't have that much time to wander around. It is just a name. We can use the name of a mission to go to the various checkpoints. After passing through the Donglan Principality, we still have to pass through a few countries. It will be much more convenient to get a mercenary qualification. I can borrow one then. Then why do we need to register as a mercenary group here? Isn't it better to register on the surface? Momo and I chatted casually at the entrance of the Mercenary Association. At the side, a bunch of dark elves who provoked us are lying on the ground. The moonlight ritual doesn't come without a price. The right to travel on the surface has to be exchanged with one's life. To Rose, who has always viewed the entire dark elf race as her exclusive property, this action of changing her faith to the moonlight goddess is equivalent to slapping her in the face. Furthermore, when Rose slaps herself in the face, she usually flips the table. Grey elves are always the special offerings of Rose in the dark elf family. The news of 2 grey elves appearing in the city would probably spread to all the dark elf families not long after we entered the city. Perhaps, before they could even lay their hands on us, they might even start fighting amongst themselves. Thus, even though time is tight, I insisted on registering as a mercenary group here. Naturally, Momo, who is in a hurry to escape, doesn't understand my actions. Although every country has a mercenary association, from a certain perspective, mercenaries are also a backup force of the local government and country. If you register on the surface and a war breaks out at the place where you register, wouldn't you be dragged into it as well? I see. It does make sense. Momo nodded in agreement. Madam, although this young man is telling the truth is not the main point. Even if the country perishes, free mercenaries will not go to the battlefield for free. That kind of war mobilization has always been a decoration for the deaf. This little brother's current motive should be to make use of the fact that the Vance Mercenary Association is probably the only organization in the world that doesn't require any proof of identity to make his identity untraceable. Many wanted criminals and assassins do this. It was a rather handsome centaur. His upper body was covered in purple bronze soft armor, while his lower body was covered in light horse armor. The bone bow on his back shone with an orange arcane light. It was obviously not an ordinary item. Casio? Yes, sir. Although I don't know how you managed to convince my stubborn grandfather to let me out, since the old chieftain had given an order, I will obey it. The one in front of me is one of the grandsons of old Miniel, as well as the brother of the new beastman sovereign Anya in name. However, different from the other brothers who dote on Anya, Casio is rather ambitious. What gives one a headache is that he has the ability and prestige to turn his ambition into reality. After going through several wars with the outside world, the gold-ranked Beau Casio became a famous hero of the tribe. However, to old Miniel, it would be a pity to kill this ambitious grandson. However, if he were to die, the possibility of him rebelling is too high and it would be hard for Anya to suppress it. Thus, when I asked old Miniel to borrow an outstanding centaur archer from a certain channel, old Miniel thought of this gold-ranked bow without hesitation. At this moment, Casio stands there quietly, as though he is a healthy and beautiful statue of a hero. He doesn't seem to be bothered by the outside world, but looking at his trembling ears and the fingers that stroke the arrow from time to time, nothing that happens in the surroundings can escape his senses. Sir, are we going to register now? No, let's wait for one more person. I have arranged to meet him here. Looking at how the Dark Elves fear this local bully and don't dare to step forward to cause trouble, at least for now, the arrival of this respectful and courteous Cagio is a good thing. However, to be able to scare the cunning Dark Elves to the point that they don't even dare to approach him shows how scary this man is. He is completely incomparable to that foolish unlucky fellow. No wonder old Miniel would happily kick him out of the door. The reason why he brought along a centaur archer is because the weakness of the three of us knight who don't have a mount is too obvious: our short legs. Due to the existence of centaur tribes in quite a few of the kingdom of the elves on the surface, the centaurs are one of the few beastman races that are able to survive on both the surface and the underground. As long as we do a little disguise, no one would be able to guess that Cagio comes from the underground. The other person makes up for our other weakness. Very quickly, the person I am waiting for arrives. However, rather than calling that fellow a human, it would be more accurate to call him a humanoid armor. A grey gigantic heavy armor covers everything. Outside of the bizarre bird helmet, I can only faintly see two bright eyes. Behind his back is a 3-meter-long spear, a pair of swords by his waist, and a dwarven gun. His bizarre equipment makes it impossible for me to recognize his specific job. However, looking at the string of dwarven hand grenades by his waist and the gunpowder bag on his back, he should have just completed his huge purchase of gunpowder. Freak Prince. Back then, when we were stationed at the outskirts of Vance City, Momo had met this Iron City's Prince Grim. At this moment, she shudders and instinctively takes 2 steps back. Of course, I know why she retreats in fear. That Prince Grim is basically a humanoid gunpowder warehouse. Furthermore, he is obviously a war maniac and is inconceivably sensitive. If I accidentally bump into him, it would explode. If I suddenly pass by him, it would explode. If I enter his room without his permission, it would still explode. Alright, even if I don't do anything, as long as I am not too far away from him, it is possible for me to explode. However, he is different from the Bayar brothers who always involve themselves in trouble. His explosions are all related to traps and mechanisms. It is obvious that they are controlled and intentional. He doesn't trust anyone and is always on his guard. This is obviously related to his growth. I am also not some psychotherapist who is able to treat his war syndrome. The reason why I asked him to come is that his sense of vigilance and instincts would be useful to me. On a journey, the easiest thing to lose one's life isn't a strong enemy in the open, but a dagger in the back and a venomous snake in the bushes. I have a premonition that his sense of danger will be of great use. Grim, nice to meet you. I am Roland, Holy Knight Roland. You should have received the notice. In this temporary team, you will listen to me. The man with the helmet nods his head silently, indicating that he has no objections. All right, everyone is here. Let's go in. I hope that Diana has already completed her cleaning mission. Yes, cleaning mission. In front of the window for handing in missions, there are already a bunch of reckless mercenaries lying on the ground. They are the targets to be cleaned. This isn't the first time that I have mingled with mercenaries. If these fellows who sell their lives for money were to see a newcomer of the same trade, most of them would try out the newcomer. This is to fight for the resources for the mission, and from a certain perspective, it is also a blessing for the newbies. Of course, passing the test is a blessing. If they fail, it is a cruel baptism. As for me, since there is bound to be a clash, then I might as well throw the legend rank Holy Knight Diana to them to crash into a metal plate. Obviously, the clash is already over. The unlucky fellows lying on the ground are the losers. Slowly walking to Diana's side, I put on a standard 59-style business smile and say to the service staff, "Register a small mercenary group. I am the leader and this beautiful lady is the vice leader." All right. The ones lying on the ground are the backbone of the association. If they don't know that they have met with a tough opponent at this moment, they would really be fools. May I know the name of the mercenary group? Momo and her companions. All right, everyone ignores this female elf who is trying to act cute on purpose. Law and Holy Light. We have a Justice Knight and a Holy Knight. I think it is very fitting. Diana says hesitantly. I shake my head. From a certain perspective, this name is also a vexation of Diana herself. Relying on both sides is equivalent to not touching either side. It isn't good to keep hesitating. I say a few more words with a hidden meaning. Diana hesitates for a moment before nodding her head in the end. Then, law and justice. I still shake my head. This means that the restrictions of a mercenary group that is connected to the god of law are too strong. It is easy to cause inexplicable disputes. Thus, I toss out the good name that I have prepared for a long time. This is a name that sounds much better than R-Dang and RB. New Free Gentleman Alliance. In an instant, the faces of the two former town security members collapse. One pulls out his sword while the other stares angrily. How can they accept the name of their old enemy? I agree. The name Gentleman Alliance sounds nice. However, a familiar figure suddenly appears in front of us. In an instant, as though we have suddenly met a gigantic nightmare, we instinctively take 2 steps back. Bayfoam. Why are you here? Of course, it is to travel to the surface with you guys. Nonsense, didn't you say that you want to go on a journey to find yourself? Alright, looking at how he stares straight at the centaur archer while drooling, I know his true goal. I say, don't even think about it. It is impossible for us to let you join us. Actually, my strength is not bad. I am definitely a qualified beast hunter. Of course, I know that he is definitely a qualified beast hunter. Otherwise, he would have been beaten to death after causing so much trouble. Based on his love for pets, I wouldn't be surprised if he were to condense a soul imprint like the love of the beast to advance into a legend. However, even if a beast tamer possesses decent long-range attack capabilities and is able to use pets for scouting and sentry purposes, which is obviously an ability that we need, I still looked for Casio and Clint. I just don't want to be together with this pervert. However, I feel that the Gentleman Alliance isn't enough to describe our surging passion. I suggest calling it the Wild Brothers Club. Alright, he seemed to have long considered himself as a member of the team, and he actually wanted to write down this strange name with a pen. Stop. Don't even think about it. Alright, the 2 town security members can no longer hold back their excitement in their hearts. Just like before, they use their fists to express their deep feelings. As for me, I make use of the chaos to get in front of the counter and say to the confused attendant, Absolute Gentleman Alliance, thank you. Chapter 75. Lensburg, or Lensburg Fortress, is the closest city to the exit of the underground tunnel that we chose. Situated in the Chur Highlands, Lensburg Fortress is located in the interior of the Ming Kingdom. Yet, it is one of the few fortified cities in the entire country. The thick and heavy brick walls are both beautiful and sturdy under the design of a master architect. The 10-meter tall and 3-meter thick walls were built in the imagination of the giant race. The long moat is filled with hungry piranhas. The reason? They have a good neighbor. The entrance to the underground world is wide open, allowing anyone to enter and anyone to exit. The seasonal raids of the underground beastmen, the traditional trial of the dark elves hunting the surface elves in the middle of the night, the black dragons and red dragons occasionally flying out of the underground tunnel for a change, the mags and necromancers who sneak out to look for experimental subjects, the demons who search for offerings, the worshippers of the malevolent gods. Alright, even I feel that there is a reason why the residents of the underground world are exiled and viewed as enemies. At the very least, in the underground tunnel alone, we met 3 dark elves raiding parties and 2 beastmen patrolling parties. The latter bowed and left upon seeing Casio, while the former was stunned upon seeing the grey elves. Then, without hesitation, they changed their target for the trial and charged towards us. Alright, originally, after forming the team, I was intending to do some training to test the strength of the newcomers. However, when Casio raised his bone bow and did a round of roll call with his golden arrows, someone shouted out the name gold-ranked bow and the dark elves immediately retreated. Of course, Casio's valiant appearance when he shot his arrows was indeed impressive, completely different from the muddle-headed Anya. However, when I saw a certain beast tamer drooling over Casio with green eyes, I started to worry for this centaur hero. Gold-ranked. If he isn't even 30 yet, that means that he has just reached adulthood among the centaurs. Not bad, but compared to that gold-ranked beast tamer half-dragon, he is still lacking by a little. Especially since that fellow is definitely the type to achieve his goals by hook or by crook. The more outstanding you are, the more dangerous it is. I wanted to remind this centaur, but along the way, Beifeng was chatting happily with him, making me at a loss as to how to do it. If one only looked at Beifeng's outer appearance, he was tall and burly, with a simple and unadorned face. The impression he gave others was not bad, but that deep and strong voice was always slow and gentle, and the way he spoke was humorous and knowledgeable, giving off the feeling of a mature elder and a philosopher. Alright, it is precisely because his appearance is good and he is eloquent that there are so many victims and he is such a great threat to society. This image of a loyal older brother, along with an appropriate amount of kindness and a sincere silly smile, was especially to Keijio's liking since he seemed cold but was actually worried about his future. The most important thing was that Beifeng played along with the young centaur's way of speaking. Very soon, after the initial test, and with Beifeng's hard work, the two of them began chatting and laughing. Diana couldn't stand it anymore and kindly went over to remind him. However, she was clumsy and didn't manage to say anything. Instead, she was pushed back by Beifeng. Intelligent creatures have such shallow views. They are used to making judgments based on the species and appearance of living beings. Yes, I am a draken with the black dragon's bloodline, but those who are familiar with me know that I love all life and small animals. I am a draken with the bloodline of the black dragon, but those who are familiar with me would know that I am very gentle. Alright, his hurt gaze makes it seem as though he has suffered a huge grievance, as though Diana is a racist bad person. Under Keijio's furious glare, the kind-hearted Diana is unable to speak of those disgusting filth and could only shake her head and retreat. Big sis, you really are a busybody. Won't that centaur brat know in 2 days? But, by then, it will already be too late. Pu. As expected, the more innocent a person is, the more imagination they have. Hearing the words "it will be too late," the others burst into laughter. Then, they look at the famous gold bow with a playful gaze, especially the armor on his lower body. Brat who doesn't know the harm of Beifeng, sing the flowers of the backyard again the next day. Alright, I don't know who came up with a crooked poem, but the comical tone and lyrics made everyone burst into laughter. Yuen, facing Diana's questioning gaze of how can you be like this, at the very least, I won't admit that it was a momentary inspiration of mine. The arrogant Keijio ignored everyone after entering the group. He even pretended not to hear Kolos's polite greetings. Along the way, he even used their race to address others, "Hey, that goblin, hey, that fat human," easily offending quite a few people. Thus, seeing Beifeng aiming at him, other than the kind-hearted Diana, no one else has the intention to expose him. They are happy to watch him make a fool of himself. After which, other than being ambushed by the dark elves near the exit, the journey can be considered as smooth sailing. However, after walking into the underground world, bathing in the familiar yet unfamiliar warm sunlight, looking at the boundless blue sky and the vast land that I couldn't see the end of, even I felt a little emotional. The Roland sacred sword by my waist is also resonating slightly, as though expressing its impatience. The direction it wishes to head to is naturally the north of the continent. Donglan Principality, descendant of the mist. I would like to test him out. If he isn't able to meet my requirements, it would be a disgrace to this glorious name. Shaking my head, I toss the unnecessary thoughts to the back of my head. Turning around, I see that my companions in the merchant group aren't in a good state. Momo, who was usually ridiculously energetic, is sitting on the ground with her eyes closed. On the other hand, Diana is half kneeling with a pale face. Her mouth is muttering something, as though she is praying. I won't fall up, I won't fall up. When I get closer, I realize that she is actually muttering to herself. In an instant, I can't help but laugh. This was not a rare problem. Even on the surface, if a miner came out to look at the sky after staying underground for a long time, he would have the illusion that he would be grabbed by the sky at any time and fall from the sky when he saw the boundless sky from a narrow hole in the ground. This is an instinctive feeling of living beings. The experienced miner would recover after a while, but to the dark elves who have spent their entire lives in the underground world, it isn't easy to deal with. Born in the underground world, they are already used to being above the clouds and the dark cliff walls. They are even more used to the first ray of light being brought in by the glowing moss on the cliff walls. When the seemingly natural top of the cliff suddenly disappears, it is as though the humans living on the surface have suddenly lost the sun and blue sky. Even if their rationality knows that it is fine, it is inevitable for them to feel extreme discomfort in their body and mind. Based on what I know, this kind of instinctive reaction, nicknamed as fear of open lands, requires at least a few months to overcome. There are also quite a few who fail to overcome it in their entire lives. The grey elves, who are afraid of light to begin with, are in the worst condition. They are immediately allowed to rest on the carriage. As for Casio, even though his hooves are trembling slightly, he still pretends to be calm and tries his best to stand straight. As for Ingo, Hoyle and the other old foxes, they have been to the surface world for God knows how many times. The few fellows from the law faction are the same as well. They are already happily doing whatever they need to do. As for Grimm, it should be his first time on the surface world. With his thick armor and bird helmet, it is impossible to see his expression. However, from the way he is constantly groping for the grenades by his waist, it seems like he isn't having a good time either. Currently, he needs a sense of security from the explosives. Why, is there one person missing? Alright, I have already intentionally neglected him. You all still want to mention him, aren't you courting death? Are you alright? Why don't you rest on the carriage for a while? No, there's no need. I'm fine. Looking at the disdainful faces of the others, even if it is Big Brother Beifeng's sincere concern, how can the stubborn young centaur admit defeat in front of everyone? Then, brother, let me lean on you. I'm feeling a little dizzy. The black draken suddenly sits on the ground and leans on the belly of Casio's horse. Casio is taken aback for a moment before coming to a realization. A smile appears on his cold and arrogant face. Alright, since that is the case, I will let you lean on me for a while. Thus, the arrogant centaur prince bends his hooves and sits down like a war horse, allowing Beifeng to lean on the side of his stomach. Slowly, after sitting on the ground and feeling the warmth of his comrade and the sturdy ground, the young centaur prince's frantic heartbeat slows down. His fear of open lands is greatly alleviated. After which, the iceberg of the centaur prince, who is cold on the outside but warm on the inside, finally melts and smiles gratefully. Thank you. Big Brother Beifeng. Why are you thanking me? I should be the one thanking you. Hee hee. Big Brother, you are the best. You haven't seen the best parts of me yet. There will be chances in the future. While chatting, the centaur prince and draken lean against each other. Their hands even accidentally touch each other before hurriedly pulling away. That scene is so intimate that it is impossible to look at it directly. Looking at the frightening scene in front of me, I rub my head and secretly decide that I must quickly find a secluded corner to bury Beifeng alive so as to prevent him from polluting my eyes. Judging from the looks of those who are either gritting their teeth or vomiting, there are quite a few who have the same thought. If it wasn't for the fact that this young ace archer isn't weak, they might have already taken action. The Lensburg castle isn't far from the entrance of the underground city, so we arrive just before sunset. When we reach there, just as we approach the city gates, we meet with a new problem. The one over there, take off your helmet for inspection. Whose slave is that draken? Does he bite? Does he have an epidemic prevention certificate? Hearing that Big Brother is being treated as an animal, the impulsive Casio reaches for his bow, intending to kill the guard as per his usual habits. However, I hurriedly stop him. I don't want to become a wanted criminal the moment I arrive in the human kingdom. Actually, the guard's words are logical. If it wasn't for the Holy Knight accompanying us, he would have shouted for his men to surround us and attack us the moment he saw the draken. Draconians are a unique race created by humans. They are completely different from the descendants of dragons that are born from mixed blood. Although they have their own race and culture, they are indeed unnatural products. In the chaotic immemorial era, the seven-colored evil dragon god Tiamat and the evil wizard created them to serve the evil dragons, red dragons, black dragons, blue dragons, etc., who are inclined towards chaos. Beifeng himself is a draken with the bloodline of the black dragons. On the other hand, the kind-hearted metal dragons, gold dragons, silver dragons, etc., don't have any favorable impressions of these draconians. Due to the natural suppression of their bloodline, most of the Draconians are still the servants of the evil dragons. For example, as the new Dragon Queen, the Dragon City that Little Red is currently building has countless Draconians as servants. This is also the reason why Bayfeng was able to use those words to gain Kagio's approval. Because in many places, even if the Draconians are talented and possess great combat strength, they are still discriminated against due to their fate as servants. Of course, in the chaotic underground world, it is easy for black dragons and red dragons to die in battle. This way, it is easy for their servants and descendants to obtain freedom. This is probably the place with the most number of free Draconians. Thus, in the eyes of humans, the black Draconians are equivalent to the claws of the evil dragons. Now that there is a Saint Knight in this party, it is logical to infer that this Draconian is the slave or spoil of war of a certain mage. I am the slave of this Lord Centaur. Thank you, little brother. It's fine. I have seen many of these kinds of ordinary people. Don't lower yourself to his level. Bayfeng pulls the impulsive Kagio back and whispers in his ear. Furthermore, as if to not make things difficult for the other party, Bayfeng even takes the initiative to admit that he is the other party's slave. In an instant, Kagio feels strangely touched. In an instant, when the two men's eyes meet, lightning sparks fly in all directions. All the affection between them is expressed in their eyes. There is no need for any unnecessary words. In the eyes of the spectators, this scene becomes unbearable once again. Ooh, Momo is going to vomit. Momo is really going to vomit. At this moment, I am seriously considering whether it is feasible to toss them aside and let them fend for themselves while I look for an archer myself. Alright, after this problem was solved, there was another problem on the other side. Clint insisted on not taking off his helmet, so the city guards naturally wouldn't let him pass. Their argument attracted even more city guards. When these city guards stared at us with wary gazes, and the cannons on the city walls slowly adjusted their aim, I knew that we couldn't continue on like this. Detect evil. The effect of this one-circle divine art is that when the holy light descends, the villains, or rather, those who possess the power of chaos, will be dyed red. In an instant, the black Draconians turn red while the bodies of the others radiate a faint white light. Sir Military Officer, look at the radiance on his body. He is also a kind citizen of order. However, this brother of mine has severe burns and the appearance beneath his armor is ugly. I am afraid of scaring others, so I don't dare to take it off. On the surface, I hold the hands of the guard and explain. However, with a flick of my wrist, a small pouch slides into the sleeves of the guard. Can you help me? For the sake of Bayana, goddess of wealth. This isn't the first time that young guard with a face full of pockmarks has accepted bribes. Looking left and right, and seeing that no one is paying attention to them, he flicks his sleeves once more. The sound of metal clashing resounds. Seeing that the amount isn't light, he nods his head in satisfaction. Go in. Don't cause any trouble. When our caravan enters, Harloise's voice rings in my ears. That pouch isn't light. How much did you spend? This isn't something you are used to. Guess. I'm guessing that it's all copper coins, right? That's 30 copper coins at most. However, for a guard, it isn't a small amount, 5 gold coins. How is that possible? You miser, to think that you would suffer a loss. Hehe, I have earned quite a bit before this trip. This little bit of money is nothing. No, it isn't a problem of money. It's your personality that will never suffer a loss. 5 gold coins? Is it the flower elf magic coins that will dissipate in a night? That thing is worth 100 times more than normal gold coins. Wouldn't it be a huge loss for me to pay so much in order to prevent the other party from taking advantage of me? No, based on my understanding of you, as long as you are happy, you are willing to pay any price to make others unhappy. Hey, stop keeping me in suspense. Your teacher is really curious. Then go ahead and be curious. While I exclaim at how deep this idiot cat's understanding of me is, I don't intend to reveal the answer. Based on my understanding of her, this omniscient magic pet has an endless thirst for knowledge and secrets. Once her curiosity is piqued, she will definitely get to the bottom of it. Otherwise, she won't be able to sleep for the entire night. That way, I can make use of this opportunity to achieve my goal. Hey, don't be like this. You will think about it for the entire night. How about I promise to teach you ice magic that even a magic idiot like you can use? You should tell me now, right? Yuen, as expected, she gave in an instant and I have achieved my goal. The current me is still too weak. Even if I am just a little stronger, it is good enough. In my current state, I can actually use necromancy and ice magic. I am also a master of necromancy, but if I were to be labeled as a necromancer because of this, I would immediately become a wanted criminal. That would be the end of my identity. Thus, even though I belong to the Chaos faction, the elemental magic that human mags of the Order faction would definitely be able to learn became my only choice. On the other hand, my knowledge of ice magic is still stuck at the level of gathering magic power to blast it. Since there is a master of all magic by my side, naturally, I would ask her for guidance. Pui, you want me to teach this unfilial disciple of yours to be killed once again? Dream on. Alright, if I use the magic pet contract to suppress her, she would indeed teach me. However, if I were to purposely miss a single point, it would be enough for me to be finished at the crucial moment. But I am not anxious at all. She understands me and I understand her. Actually, as long as I find the right method, this Queen of Banshees is easy to deal with. All I have to do is to wait patiently for an opportunity to pique her curiosity. As expected, not even a week after I said those arrogant words, she took the bait. Looking at the little cat who is scratching my neck with all her might but is unable to even break through the Titan's skin, I smile. Alright, the mystery has been revealed. It is indeed 5 gold coins. Didn't I interrupt the training with Momo to buy 2 black iron longswords worth 10 gold coins? So, I placed the shard in that bag. It can be considered as recycling. However, it was indeed 5 gold coins in the past, and it is still worth 5 gold coins now. That longsword's workmanship is shoddy and the cost of crafting it is negligible. The cost of materials and the price of the sword are basically the same. However, I am not so bored as to forge a new black iron sword. Impossible. When did you prepare it? I prepared it on the way here. How many years has it been? As long as I put on a good performance, this move has never failed before. Yes, I knew that there would definitely be a problem when we enter the city. That bag of shard was prepared on the way here. Even the lines of bribery and the action of giving money were rehearsed. Bastard. You dare to make a fool out of me, brat, just you wait. The sudden shout behind me makes me shake my head. Sigh, you didn't even change the lines. It really lacks novelty. Aren't you afraid that he will lead his troops to find trouble with you? It is one thing for a small soldier to take advantage of us, but it is weird for him to call his comrades to seek revenge. If he were to slander you as a spy, wouldn't he be able to call for help? Isn't that how all night novels are written? This is a classic plot. I look at Harlois sympathetically. As expected, reading too many night novels will result in a brain damage. With just this level of intelligence, she claims to be an omniscient person. Then, you have to first explain why he let a spy in. Furthermore, if he finds out that we aren't spies and it is just him making a false report for revenge, wouldn't that small soldier have to lose his head? As expected of my disciple, you are indeed a sly old fox. Thank you for your compliment, but please call him an experienced monk. The master and disciple look at each other, instantly feeling a sense of appreciation for each other. Behind us, Momo, who saw this scene, suddenly tugs on Diana's sleeves. Look at that Roland. His expression when looking at that cat is so weird, as though he is looking at it as a human. Could it be that he is the same species as Beifong? That's why he didn't touch Big Sister that night? Ever since Diana, who was annoyed by Momo, revealed that she is still a young lady, Momo has been making all kinds of malicious guesses about Roland. Shut up. You are not allowed to mention that night. Recalling the weird gazes that everyone looked at her after that day, Diana sighs helplessly. Recently, my luck is really bad. I really offended the god of misfortune. Not long after, this complaint reached my ears, and I immediately laughed heartily. You didn't offend the god of misfortune, but the halo of calamity. Haha, I found another one whose luck is lower than mine. Nice to meet you. Unlucky lightning rod number 3. Let us get along well. Chapter 76. Borrowing the dim light from the oil lamp, I lay on the bed and read a book, waiting for the first ray of sunlight to shine into the room. The warm sunlight gradually warms my body and mind. This is an ordinary life that most people are used to, but it is my most cherished enjoyment. I didn't manage to read much of the book, but my thoughts were running wild. My mind is the clearest in the morning, and all kinds of bad ideas pop up one after another. Perhaps, this is the instinct of life to yearn for the light. It has been almost half a month since I arrived at this Lance fortress. Ingo's merchant group has already left. They are heading towards the Ottoman Empire to attend the inauguration ceremony of the new Emperor Dasos, and that Roland robot is the congratulatory gift. The Ottoman royalty and nobles, who are known for their extravagance, also pursue rare items. There is definitely only one such novel and interesting robot. In Ingo's calculations, this gift of a gift from 1,000 miles away is definitely a profitable investment. The merchant group has long left, but I have no intention of leaving. Every day, I only practice my swordsmanship, read books, stroll the streets, chat, and drink tea. I am as idle as a retired old man. Could it be that this fellow really came to the human world for a vacation? Amidst the confused gazes of the onlookers, I actually did many things. For example, collecting information, updating the current situation and changes in the various countries in the continent, and making adjustments for future operations. I have to say, due to the long and dangerous underground tunnel and the chaos of the underground world, a piece of news on the surface would usually become a thing of the past when it reaches the underground. Unless it is an important piece of news brought back by a spy, normal information would take at least half a year to transmit, and mistakes and errors are unavoidable. Furthermore, most of the residents of the underground world can't even finish their own lives, so how would they have the leisure to care about the surface that is thousands of miles away? Even gossip travels slowly. Thus, most of the information that Sulphur Mountain City receives comes from the idle chatter of merchants, and most of them are from 30 years ago. Wrong information can only lead to wrong judgments. Without even knowing the personalities and backgrounds of the leaders of the various countries, how can we make targeted arrangements? This point needs to be corrected. It sounds elegant and high class, but in reality, it is just reading a newspaper and reading a book. Due to the existence of the God of Knowledge, the printing technology of the Asia continent was rather advanced. Just like the daily newspapers of Sulphur Mountain City, the Ming Dynasty United Kingdom also had its own newspaper industry. Even though the newspapers that were sent from the capital, Casserola City, to this fortress city were usually 3 months old and there weren't many types of newspapers, it was still much better than the useless information from decades ago in the underground world. Even so, the amount of old newspapers and periodicals I had read in half a month was enough to fill 3 or 4 rooms. The evil underground world is getting restless. The legendary Underground Alliance had surface. Our wise King Arthur II has called for a long war. Even Molly's name was written incorrectly. The Underground Alliance has changed a long time ago, it's just as outdated information. However, to be able to foresee the underground world's plan to attack the surface 10 years in advance, and to prepare for a long period of time, it seemed that this Arthur II, who was praised as a virtuous king by the later generations, was really capable. Gathering intelligence was just a daily activity. There were many things that seemed unimportant but were actually very important to deal with. For example, identity, background, and accent. In order to blend into human society, I had to first solve these 2 problems. The way ancient people spoke and the way modern people spoke were 2 completely different concepts. Even the most commonly used common language had many different dialects and accents. This might seem like a small matter, but it was often the easiest way to reveal one's true identity. To me, learning to imitate an accent wasn't a problem. What was difficult was to remove those ancient words that had long disappeared from history. If I were to recite 300-year-old words and the grammar of the past, no matter how I looked at it, there would be a problem. In this aspect, the most important practice was to chat with others and read newspapers. In this aspect, I could only try one word at a time. It was time-consuming and exhausting, but it was already effective. In terms of identity and background, I had already made preparations long ago. Under my arrangements, a declining noble family with the background of the Mist Country had already resided in this city for more than 20 years. Their ancestor had helped the previous king fight for the throne and obtained the title of knight. Although they had already lost their noble title in this generation and were only relying on a few pieces of land to sustain their lives, they could still be considered as a member of the human nobility. They had a son, Rollo, who was suffering from leprosy. He was sent to a monastery to live a secluded life. Occasionally, he would return, but in fear of infecting others, he would be wrapped in bandages and black cloth, making it impossible for others to see his face. 4 years ago, perhaps due to their pious prayers being heard by the heavens, the god of holy light performed a miracle and healed the pitiful young man, bestowing him the identity of a holy knight. Inconceivably, the young man ventured into the underground world alone. In the eyes of most of the nobles in the city, this was just another propaganda story used by the Holy Church to expand their influence. Anyway, the young man wouldn't be able to return, so who knows if it was true or not. But surprisingly, there was a continuation to this story recently. Just when everyone was feeling sorry for the miraculously healed young man who rashly sent himself to his death, half a month ago, he actually returned. Furthermore, he returned with quite a bit of wealth, as if he had reaped a great harvest. His nickname was Rollo and his full name was Roland. Now, under the influence of someone with an ulterior motive, this legendary story had already begun to spread in the city. Alright, speaking of which, everyone should have guessed that the person with an ulterior motive was one of my men. Yes, this 19-year-old Rollo actually didn't exist. That family of his was sent out by me 20 years ago. The real person involved in this identity had long settled down in Sulphur Mountain City. In order to make the two identities as similar as possible, the few times that Rollo came into contact with his neighbors, I was the one who personally acted as him. In fact, I even purposely left behind some obvious traces of myself, such as the weird tone of voice and the rather weird cross-legged sitting posture. Plotting 20 years in advance just for the identity of a noble and a clean background, doesn't it seem unnecessary? No, in my eyes, this still isn't enough. Even though I felt helpless, in this world, as the rulers, humans are probably the most xenophobic race. If one wants to survive in the human society or climb up the ranks to become a superior noble, a noble identity that has been passed down for 3 generations is a must. If one were to be treated as a spy of another race, there would probably be nothing left to do. Of course, there are quite a few blank spots in this history. If someone were to investigate it in the future, there would definitely be suspicious points. However, suspicious points are much more trustworthy than a completely blank past. Being unclear of one's origin can be used as a weak point to be attacked. But, if one were to attack the other party just because of a suspicious point, at the very least, one would have to come up with evidence to prove that this identity is fake. This isn't an easy task. Recently, I had been strolling around the streets every day, greeting the neighbors' uncles, aunties, and grocery aunties. I even displayed those strange traces of myself in order to make the two identities overlap and increase the authenticity of my fake identity. But, due to certain reasons, due to my pathetic luck, I went a little overboard. Pooey, Roland, I heard that you have a fetish for old ladies. Nonsense. How could there be such a ridiculous fetish? It's just that damned daily quest requires me to help old ladies cross the road 10 times. However, there aren't any so-called pedestrian crossings here, and there are even fewer horse carriages. In the end, after waiting for an entire afternoon, I only met 3 old ladies who fit the criteria. In the end, I even begged them to let me help them cross the road. In the end, my eyes lit up as I looked for old ladies everywhere, trying to please them. That's how I got this bad nickname. No, I heard that it's the wild dog Terminator. Nonsense. Dogs are humans' best friends. I really like that quest of bathing wild dogs, it's just that the dogs don't like it. What a bunch of sharp teeth and claws. Fortunately, I have holy light, otherwise I wouldn't be able to see anyone the next day. Ah, I heard that you were caught on the spot because you followed a beauty with evil intentions. Nonsense. My goal is only to defeat evil and take care of those hoodlums. It's a pity that I didn't manage to catch a single hoodlum that day. As expected, was the Holy Knight's stealth skills lacking? As for being arrested, I am a Holy Knight, so how could they possibly arrest me? It only took a little effort to convince the guards. The end result of these quests, other than letting me deeply understand that the system is still as deceptive as ever, doing good is harder than doing bad. It also made the miraculous Roland and lucky little Roland turn into overly kind Roland and then into that Roland next door who has water in his head, and it's a pity that the young lad's brain has been burnt by the holy light. It's fine, this way, the impression I leave on others would be deeper. Being a little silly is more in line with the character of a hot-blooded person who rushes into the underground world to die. It's a good thing, it's a good thing. This is my self-deception, filled with tears of blood. But, sometimes, when calamities descend one after another, when one's image collapses, there is a limit to self-deception. Good your head, the gaze of the cute lady next door at me has changed from the longing she had when she first met me to the pity of looking at a retard. There are even people shouting "Don't give up hope, don't give up on treatment" behind my back. It has only been a week and my image has been completely destroyed. If this goes on, I will finally be able to shake off the identity of the Lich Roland who has water in his head, but I will become the Holy Knight Roland whose brain has been burnt by the holy light. But it is a pity that in order to become stronger as quickly as possible, I have no choice but to do those daily quests that are getting more and more deceptive. I am starting to miss that evil-doing system. These days, doing good deeds is much harder than doing bad deeds. Helping an old lady cross the road is treated as an attempt to rob the elderly, helping someone carry their luggage is treated as an attempt to steal, volunteering to sweep the streets is treated as a lunatic, bathing a dog and shaving its fur is treated as an attempt to make a dog meat hot pot. Can't humans have a little more trust in one another? Sir System, you win. Take pity on my ruined reputation and image, let me go. Now, even that silly big sister Diana is looking at me strangely. When she sees me being scammed by the system, she doesn't look as surprised as before. Instead, she nods her head matter-of-factly, as though saying yeah, that's how Roland should be. As expected, that dignified Judge Wu Mianzi is just a facade. But today, just as I was halfway through reading the newspaper, I was attracted by a piece of news from 3 months ago. The new emperor of the powerful Ottoman Empire has ascended to the throne. Including the Bubi Principality, Donglan Principality, and Kasilo Kingdom, 42 vassal states have sent their royalty to congratulate him. It is expected that during the ceremony, they will present their flags as a symbol of their loyalty and trust. Catcher. With a crisp sound, the newspaper is split into 2 halves. Vassal states. My blood surges and I can no longer see the rest of the words. An inexplicable anger and grievance makes my heart burn, but I don't know how to vent it. Even though I already knew that the current Donglan Principality is no longer the powerful warring state that was independent for 1,000 years, and I can understand that it is international practice for a small country to submit to a large country, but when I think about how the Mist War flag, which symbolizes unyielding and protection, is actually going to be placed under the royal flag of a certain empire, an inexplicable feeling of grievance makes me so angry that I want to kill someone. Darned unfilial descendants, useless things. To think that you would actually dare to force other countries to submit to you. You have thrown away the dignity of the Mist bloodline and the 1,000 years of glory. Alright, even though I know that my complaints are unreasonable, the inexplicable anger in me still causes me to fly into a rage in the room. After a long while, I finally calm down and sigh helplessly. Sigh, actually, you can't blame them. I know that there are some things that cannot be blamed on the later generations. It is already impressive that the later generations are able to rebuild their country. If we really want to blame someone, we can only blame the previous generation's ruler. Thus, after calming down, I look at the torn newspaper once again and piece him together. Even though it is infuriating, this intelligence is indeed very important, so I have to study it carefully. The new Emperor Dasos, isn't he the king of winter wolves in history? Even though he is an unlucky fellow who was turned gay by Victoria, his achievements in history are outstanding. He is indeed not to be underestimated. When I think of Victoria, I think of Dasos's tragic ending. For some reason, my mood becomes much better. A devious idea that is filled with malice pops up in my mind. For an emperor of a large country like him, He might have gotten tired of eating luxurious food, that's why he is infatuated with Victoria, that rare androgynous beauty. Perhaps, even though Victoria is no longer around, Kolos is still around. She is also an androgynous beauty. Why don't I try to turn him gay again and leave him in history once more? Alright, even though I am just saying it casually to vent my anger over the mist royalty being forced to lower their heads, Kolos, who is preaching in the square, suddenly feels a chill down her spine. She shudders, as though misfortune is about to descend upon her. Following that, I flip to the last page of the newspaper. There are portraits and a brief introduction of the representatives of the various vassal states who are participating in the succession ceremony. Donglan Principality, I got it. Is it a princess? Renee Chin missed. Catcher. The newspaper that was barely pieced together is completely destroyed. This time, it isn't because of anger, but because of the scene in front of me. At the corner of the newspaper, there is a vivid portrait. On the portrait, a valiant female knight wearing silver armor is waving to the people with a bright smile. Knight Princess Renee, the only descendant of the mist in the world. She is deeply trusted by the people. An imposter of the descendant of the mist. All my guesses are useless now. In front of the valiant face of the female knight, I have to admit it even if I don't want to. Roland. Look at this. This Lord Princess looks so similar to Rollo and you. Could it be that you are a family? Don't try to deny it. This time, the evidence is conclusive. Hurry up and let Momo meet the cute little Rollo. Momo rushes in. In her hands, she is waving a newspaper that is exactly the same as the one in my hands. As for that knight princess named Renee, she actually looks 90% similar to me. If it wasn't for the gentleness of a female instead of a male, the sharpness of her face and the thinness of her eyebrows, it would seem as though we are the same person. Staring at the portrait of the young lady, I make up my mind. Looks like we have to make a trip to the capital of the Ottoman Empire, Kajisi City. Chapter 77. Renee Chin Mist, 14 years old. After the death of her father Cash Mist in battle, she became the sole successor of the Mist bloodline, gaining the trust of the people and the military. This Night Princess's experience is similar to ours. A year ago, during the border conflict, the Beastman army suddenly attacked and the previous King Cash was outnumbered and died in battle. This Night Princess went into battle at the last minute and charged for 3,000 miles, sweeping the Beastman army back to their homeland. However, there are no records of her personally participating in that battle, so her battle strength and job are unknown. Regardless of whether it is within the country or abroad, she has already been compared to the legendary Gemini Roland and Cavendish. 300 years ago, the legendary Holy Knight Roland grew rapidly in battle, reaching bronze at 12, silver at 13, and gold at 14. Before his death, it is said that the god of holy light appeared and allowed him to break through the legend realm, killing countless enemies. However, it is a pity that he was too young and died of exhaustion. Even if he is the fastest growing human, this kind of growth speed is still inconceivable. According to this speed, wouldn't he become a semigod at 20 years old? In fact, due to his growth speed being too ridiculous, there are private rumors saying that he was wronged and in the end, the god of holy light couldn't stand it anymore, so he bestowed him the power to break through. Based on this rumor, a bishop even proposed to confer the title of Saint Roland and give him the posthumous title of Saint Roland. However, this is obviously exposing his own dark history and slapping the face of the entire Holy Church, so naturally, it is impossible for it to pass. Alright, the rumors are so unbelievable, but the truth is that a certain transcender killed monsters and leveled up crazily in battle, thinking that he would be able to turn the tables, but in the end, he couldn't escape the tragedy of history. On the other hand, if Roland was a growth-type genius, then Cavendish would have been an unimaginable genius from the very beginning. He was a mage and warrior at the same time, and he had already broken through to the gold rank at an early age. At the age of 12, he was already a legend, which led to the bloodshed of Bern. If Roland was a genius that only appeared once every 300 years in the Holy Church, then Cavendish would be a genius that only appeared once every 1,000 years in the entire Aeshi. However, only I knew that Cavendish had long reached the threshold of the saint rank. He didn't break through at the same time by cultivating magic and martial arts at the same time. Instead, after cultivating his magic to the legend rank, he got bored and went to cultivate his martial arts to reach the legend rank once more. This kind of growth was obviously even more inhuman, but if it was inhuman in the first place, then it could be explained. In my research in the future, I found out that Cavendish was a demon fetus, or rather, even though he was a human, he was chosen by the Chaos Abyss. How could he possibly be ordinary? It could be said that the most important goal of the demon invasion, which was filled with suspicions, was to return the favored child of the Chaos Abyss. And in another unexpected adventure, I discovered a whole lot of shady dealings back then. A certain brain-dead prophet predicted that the Prince of the Abyss would be born from the Gemini twins of the extreme north. In order to prevent such a fate from happening, they first used the upper echelons of the Holy Church to test the pressure, forcing the royal family to hand over their eldest son to the Holy Church as a soft hostage. Then, they attempted to make him a holy knight to resist fate. At the same time, they sent assassins to assassinate the second son multiple times, which became an opportunity for the second son to grow. To speak the truth, this prophecy was indeed correct. With the system accompanying me, if I were to go all out and kill people to level up, I would definitely be even more of a demon fetus than Cavendish. In the history, it was indeed Roland who became the Prince of the Abyss. From the looks of it, the prophecy of both princes being demon fetus wasn't wrong. But sometimes, I would also think that if it wasn't for this ridiculous prophecy, we wouldn't have been forced to such a state. Did the prophecy really come true, or did the prophecy create the truth through its own butterfly effect? I'm afraid that no one would be able to figure it out. But if one were to look into it, it would be like the chicken before the egg, or the egg before the chicken. It is an unsolvable question that makes one feel puzzled and meaningless. But a fly doesn't bite an egg without a crack. Even without the instigation of a schemer, under the general trend of history and the attraction of benefits, war would still have been triggered in the end. Being outnumbered, the final outcome would probably still be the same. Alright, back to the main topic. Even though they were princes of a fallen country, even though history was distorted and not recognized by the mainstream, one was a tragic hero who sacrificed himself for his country, while the other was an anti-hero who sacrificed everything in order to avenge his fallen country. Even in the modern era, the twin princes were still the pride of the Mist Country. For this princess to be compared to the legendary twin stars of 300 years ago, it was sufficient to prove the love and reverence the citizens had for her. But I also noticed that the clothes and hairstyle of Princess Renee in the portrait were all imitations of Roland back then. Even the silver female armor she was wearing was a female version of my Thorn War armor. That seemingly cheerful smile of hers was an extension of the standard smile of a saint knight. If she doesn't worship the heroic figure from 300 years ago, then, the greatest possibility is that she is intentionally imitating the heroic figure from the legends. If the power of the country has deteriorated to the point that she, as a princess, has to create a god to gather the hearts of the people, this isn't a good sign. Perhaps, I had been subconsciously avoiding the new owner of that country, which was why I had been treating her as an imposter or as if I didn't care. Even when I started to gather intelligence on the various countries, I didn't start from the Donglan Principality. Now that the truth was placed in front of me, if I were to avoid it, I would become a tortoise hiding in its shell. That wasn't something I would do. I walked into the bathroom alone and soaked myself in the pool. Taking off the time distortion ring, I carefully adjusted the scale on the ring from 20 to 12 before putting it on. Then, as expected, it's exactly the same. When one's age returned to the time when they had just started their second puberty, the difference in gender wasn't as obvious. The mirror on the wall and the face that was almost identical to the one on the poster shattered the last shred of hope I had. Could it be that I really got into trouble that time when I drank too much? But that shouldn't be the case. Back then, the Saint Knight Order had a bunch of rules. Before I turned 12, I lived like a monk in Bainan. After that, I fought battles every day. Where would I have the time to make mistakes? What else could be more incomprehensible than having a great-great-great-granddaughter for no reason? The only consolation I had was that even though they advertised that they were the descendants of Roland, it was unclear whether they were Roland or Cavendish. After all, the demon army led by Cavendish had cleansed them out of vengeance, creating countless enemies and resentment. Under that situation, even if they were the descendants of Cavendish, they wouldn't speak the truth. It was normal for them to use the name of Roland. You bastard brother, you still want me to take the blame for you at such a time. Thinking back to the time when we were twins who looked exactly the same and I was the one who was better at talking, Cavendish was much more popular than me. He wasn't bound by all those rules and regulations. At a young age, he knew how to act young, breaking down the guard of his sisters. Not to mention the palace maids, even noble ladies fell for him. He even flaunted it in front of his elder brother. Even though I was gnashing my teeth in hatred, I still paid attention to my image as a crown prince and a saint knight. I pretended to be mature and gentlemanly, paying attention to my reputation and image. In the end, I was still a bachelor when I died. Now that I have a bunch of descendants whom I couldn't even tell if they were real or fake, I felt like I was being taken advantage of. Alright, I admit that it was the envy, jealousy, and hatred of a 300-year-old archmage. According to folklore, a 30-year-old virgin male would naturally become a mage. 300 years old, should I be a forbidden spell mage or an archmage? But when I think about how I have a great-great-great-granddaughter who is physically older than me, the exact seniority is unclear, I feel an inexplicable headache. The door isn't locked. Oh, I'm sorry. Suddenly, the door opens and that ferocious dog walks straight into the bathroom. After calmly looking at me who was soaking in the bath, she turns around and walks out. Oh, no, she didn't walk out. She went to lock the door. What is she trying to do? Hey, I felt that something was amiss. That is a magic that changes your physical body, right? Which one is your real age and name? Roland. I'm guessing that it is Rollo. Otherwise, you would have eaten Big Sister long ago and wouldn't have gotten so angry when I mentioned how useless and underdeveloped you are. I'm sorry, I accidentally stepped on your sore spot. Momo will take note of it in the future. Even though what you said sounds nice, but what are you trying to do? Why did you take off your clothes? Why did you come over? Why did you walk into the bath? What's with that saliva? Just let Momo hug me for a while. Just hug me for a while. Momo won't do anything, really. You should wipe away your saliva first before saying those words. Also, that perverted smile on your lips. As expected of a dark elf. What do you mean by that weird twisting motion of your fingers? What are you trying to do? Be good, my little darling. It will just hurt for a while. The ferocious hound has completely turned into the embodiment of lust. The dumbfounded me has already been forced into a corner. Don't even think about it. Black-skinned elf. Don't touch my man. Momo, what are you doing? A second before Diana broke the lock to enter, a flash of light suddenly shoots out from the ring on her right hand and hits Momo. Under the rage of the demon marquise, she falls to the ground. I'm sorry, Roland. I have activated the emergency rescue procedure and the ring's energy has been depleted. I'm afraid that I won't be able to contact you for the next 3 days. I really didn't see the water on the ring as the activation procedure. I'm not interested in bathroom play or peeping in the bathroom. Alright, Eliza, even if you are trying to act cute now, I won't find it cute. I'm sorry, Lord. I will scold her properly. Alright, you rushed in directly. Also, can you not look at me so calmly? Even if a boy hasn't developed yet, he still has human rights. The grey elf who rushed in directly lifts her companion up and apologizes with her head lowered. However, the way she covers her mouth and chuckles after sneaking a peek really infuriates me. Alright, the two elves have left and the bathroom regains its peace. However, I silently leave the pool. First, I take off Eliza's ring and press it under my clothes. Then, I adjust the time distortion ring and put it on. Next, I take out the spare sword beside my clothes and place it by the side of the pool before starting to bathe again. 5 minutes later, the door is broken. Is there anyone inside? Oh, male clothing. Since the pool is big enough, let's bathe together. Everyone can bathe together and scrub each other's backs. Big brother, you dropped your soap. Let me help you pick it up. This time, the ones who came are the two brothers that I can't look straight at, Beifong and Kageo. I've had enough of perverts. Eat my sundering slash. It is a pity that due to the difference in our strength, Beifeng successfully catches the blade with his bare hands. However, it is definitely a mistake to prepare the sword. The name of this group is definitely a mistake. They are all absolute gentlemen. How can there be normal people? Are you saying that you are a normal person? Gentlemen and perverts are attracted to each other. All of a sudden, a wet kitten jumped out of the bathtub. It shook its body to get rid of the water. Then, it walked past me and left the bathroom. Harlois, you are here too. Slimes need to replenish their water regularly. I came earlier than you. Seriously, you are already so old, yet you are still competing with a cat. Right, your body is not bad when you are young, you are really cute. Why don't you consider joining my harem? Although I never recruit males, but since you are so cute, I can make do with a boy. Harlois, eat my holy light slash. The pitch black night doesn't represent the end of the day. The accident during the day finally turns into a farce that engulfs everything. Initially, I wanted to bathe to recover from my fatigue, but thinking about how that was the start of everything, I could only lie on the bed helplessly. However, unexpectedly, Harlois, who has transformed into a cat, jumps into the room from the window. Hey, it's time to learn. You don't want the news of a holy knight learning elemental magic to be spread out, right? It's better to reduce the title of a freak. Although she is unreliable and dangerous, valuing the inheritance of knowledge and promises is one of the few good points of Harlois in the past. Thinking about the ice magic learning that I promised, my interest is piqued. In my second life, I did learn ice magic from Harlois, but back then, Harlois wasn't easy to talk to, so it is hard to say how much she taught me. She even said that I was stupid and didn't learn well. But half an hour later, I said that you are a pig, and you are really panting. Such a stupid acolyte is really impossible to teach. Feeling the breath of the elements doesn't require you to control them. Communicate, not to order or threaten them. If you mess around like this, not to mention becoming a semigod, how did you even become a legend rank mage? Of course, I used the system to cheat. Alright, it is enough to just think about it in my mind. There is no need to say it out loud. However, it seems that even if Harlois had taught me seriously back then, the results would probably be the same. I really don't know how you managed to teach Eliza. Her ice magic already has its own path, and her potential is limitless. As for you, your understanding is still stuck at the level of an acolyte. I just threw her the spell book and study notes, and told her to ask Marguerite if she doesn't understand. That's all. The cat sighs helplessly, but in a moment of distortion, she transforms into a human form. My leveling up has increased her ability to transform as well. The golden-haired girl appears once again, but, phut, so cute. Looking at the doll-like 3-inch nail in front of me acting like a teacher, I immediately burst into laughter. The intent of revenge in my laughter is obvious. Harlois sighs helplessly. Are you learning or not? If you aren't, I am going to sleep. If you were a little more capable, would I have become so small? The strength of a magic pet is linked to its master. Since I am still a weak chicken, it is obvious that she is still far from turning into a human. Elemental magic comes from the ancient elemental gods. The elemental gods and the elements have their own temperament. Every type of elemental magic has its own nature. Your understanding of ice is only at the surface, so naturally, you are unable to improve. What do you think the nature of ice is? Why did you choose to learn ice back then? The nature of ice. Isn't it just low temperature? How hard is it to understand? Why did I choose ice back then? Isn't it because I was born from the snow country, so I deeply understand the cruelty of winter and feel that ice magic has limitless potential? Actually, every high-level elemental mage has their own understanding of the elements. The reason why I didn't teach you before wasn't because I was holding something back, but because I wanted you to comprehend it yourself. However, it has already been a few hundred years, and you are still at this level. I know that with your aptitude in magic, who knows how many thousands of years it would take for you to comprehend it completely. Let me talk about my own understanding. With a wave of her hand, a miniature fire eagle soars in the room. Then, with a point of Harlois, a white cloud floats over. I thought that the fire eagle would explode from the clash of ice and fire. However, what surprised me was that the fire eagle only turns white, slowing down its flying speed. This is completely different from the clash of ice and fire that is common knowledge. Suddenly, I understand a little why Eliza is able to control both ice and fire at the same time. Based on my personal understanding, ice isn't something that exists in reality. She is a kind of state and trend that slows things down or even stops them. Hearing these words, I immediately feel some respect for Harlois. Temperature is a kind of energy. Low temperature will decrease the activity of things. These concepts of physics aren't much to a transcender, but for a native mage to reverse engineer the essence of elemental magic, it requires the accumulation of countless theories and experiments. This is enough to prove that Harlois' attainments in magic are extremely high. She is indeed worthy of the title of omniscient. Every ice mage's understanding of the essence of ice is different, and there is no right or wrong between them. As for your little disciple, she specializes in the creation of ice. From what I see, she views ice as the moment of stillness. In the end, she was able to train in both ice and fire because she viewed fire as the moment of movement. Through a combination of movement and stillness, an entire world was formed in her mind. Warriors strengthen their physical body to change the world, while mags use their own will and thoughts to influence the world. Don't use a foolish warrior's way of understanding magic, otherwise, you will remain an apprentice your entire life. Looking at the solemn face of this 3-inch nail, for the first time, I feel that she is indeed a teacher. I silently nod my head. Ice, her. Closing my eyes, I think of the tall snowy mountains and glacier of my hometown during winter. Living beings strive hard to fight for the right to continue living under the cruel elimination of nature, and nature uses its own methods to choose the strong who have the qualifications to continue living. Thank you, teacher. I think I understand. Chapter 78. Warriors strengthen their physical bodies to change the world, while mags use their own will and thoughts to influence the world. Don't use the foolish warrior's way to understand magic. Otherwise, you will remain an acolyte for the rest of your life, or a foolish warrior who only knows how to wield the sharp sword known as magic. Harlois is right. In the past, I did walk the wrong path. Just because I was troubled by the lack of long-range and long-range attacks as a holy knight, I didn't care about my actual situation and blindly chose to learn ice magic. Demand determines supply. Back then, I didn't really need to dig deep into the potential of ice magic. Even though my talent in magic is average, fine, just as Harlois said, my perception of the essence of the elements is so slow that it's stupid, I still forcefully raised it with the help of the system. However, at the same time that I no longer have to face bottlenecks, I also lost the accumulation period of being stuck at bottlenecks and the period of growth after a breakthrough. This is just like a science and engineering otaku using pure logic to analyze a literary work. Perhaps, he might be able to analyze all the attractive points of the literary work and make it sound logical. However, if he were to write his own beautiful essay, he would only end up writing dry pieces of tofu. Due to his lack of emotions and devotion, he is unable to link all the scattered points together into a truly good story. In the end, most of the stories end up as simple and clear news articles. According to Harlois, learning magic is similar to creating art. Both are about using one's own will to paint a small world in one's heart, then using one's own small world to influence the real world. In that case, learning magic requires a strong sense of personal subjectivity. These thoughts and processes may seem unrelated to one's strength, but in reality, they are extremely important. They determine a mage's path, and after losing these perceptual knowledge, one's path will naturally become narrower and narrower. I am the most obvious example. I learned literature, elemental magic, which requires perceptual knowledge, as mathematics, martial arts. In the end, I could only follow the books and imitate the footsteps of my predecessors to learn standard magic, forcefully turning my own ice magic into an ice cannon tower. Accumulating mana and blasting it became my ultimate understanding of ice magic. As a mage who researched forbidden spells, this is too much of a waste. But fortunately, hard work is never wasted, even if it's the opposite of what you're trying to do. Even though I didn't do research on emotions, The time and effort I put into learning rationally wasn't wasted. The fate points that I spent were rewarded. Although my rationality wasn't aware of it, the emotions in the depths of my soul were enlightened. Yep, it sounds like a tongue twister. Then, it should be even though your mouth says no, your body is so honest. The crystallization of his understanding and feelings was the once-in-a-lifetime soul imprint. Soul imprint, mark of justice, destruction, necropolis crown, destruction, ice treader, destruction, son of light, destruction. On the system's interface, the 4 soul imprints of destruction were split into a row. Increase the effect of magic incantations by 1% and increase the power of necromancy spells by 1% were negligible and could only be used to commemorate their past existence. Of course, unless I was suicidal enough to burn my soul again, they would probably be like this forever. In my second life, Ice Treader was my soul imprint, but it was clear that I had always let down its true meaning. Treader, a person who walks, measures the world with his own footsteps. From the perspective of a traveler, he discovers the scenery, understands nature, and understands life. Ice Treader is actually a traveler who is obsessed with the scenery of the northern country. The boundless snowy region, the unreachable peak of the mountain, the beauty of life under the dormant state, the avalanche that causes the earth to shatter, the small world that never freezes under the ice river, the white wolf pack that howls at the sky, the giant monster and the snow leopard that hides in the snowy mountains, the sprouts under the snowy ground, life and nature, fighting and coexisting harmoniously. Even the gods have to remain humble in the face of the true power of nature. Life changes and the rules of nature remain unchanged for thousands of years. In order to survive the difficult winter, we have to work together. The winter wolves that work together to hunt understand this, and so do the people of the northern country. When Harlois mentioned the essence of ice that she had comprehended, the scenery of my hometown in the northern country kept replaying in my memories. So, no matter if it was then or now, I have always been homesick. Deep into the night, thunder started to rumble outside. I silently stretched my hand out of the window. What fell on my palm wasn't the familiar snowflakes but the warm summer rain. What happens when a lost traveler is homesick? Naturally, it is to make a trip back home. But, it is a pity that even though the scenery of snow in my memories is still the same, the flag flying on that piece of land isn't the same as before. That seemingly unchanged snow country is no longer my homeland. I don't want to go home, at least not now. Then, since I can't return to my homeland, I will temporarily turn the scenery of my homeland into a dream. Perhaps, one day, my dream will turn into reality. Infallible defender, the soul is always more honest than the mouth. In the 3 soul imprints that formed my soul world, the Ice Treader turned into the snow scenery of my homeland, displaying its true power. It turned into an endless traveler in the snow, describing the natural winter and the beautiful scenery of the snow and ice of my homeland. Heh, what an unqualified master. To think that you don't even know the true power of your own soul imprint. Is it because the immense power has blinded your senses? But, it shouldn't be too late to understand now. So, let it snow. As I spoke softly, the rain outside turned into snowflakes. The midnight snow that was limited to the small residents might not be noticed by the neighbors, but it caused the temporary residents to exclaim in surprise. I finally understood that my path of ice magic isn't the self-righteous path of a cannon. Instead, I used magic as a pen to turn the beautiful yet dangerous ice plains in my memories into reality. Heh, don't you understand now? Harlois giggled as she jumped onto the windowsill. Turning back into her cat form, she disappeared into the snow. I closed the window. Understanding is just the beginning. There is still a long way to go before I can turn it into actual power. At the same time, in the depths of my soul, the soul imprint of the Ice Treader, destruction increases the effects of ice magic by 1%, image of the Snow Knight Traveler quietly changed. At this moment, it is the Ice Treader, damaged, in the midst of recovery increases the effects of ice magic by 3%. Looks like I have been overly reliant on the system. My soul is still here, so the body that nurtures my soul is still here. Naturally, the soul imprint, which is the crystallization of my soul, can be recovered. Let's take it slowly. A legend with 4 soul imprints, I am really looking forward to it. Very quickly, following the recovery of the soul imprint, my ice magic grew rapidly. Not long after, I was able to grasp the final forbidden spell, Ice Eon. Then, I used the forbidden spell as a threat to force the Ottoman Empire to recognize the independence of the Donglan Principality. Alright, none of the above is possible. Life isn't a dream. Just by relying on one's understanding, one can advance 1,000 miles in a day. Those are the stories in novels. In reality, one has to take things one step at a time. Even though I have already understood the essence of ice and have a plan for my future development, the problem from the past still exists. That is, as expected, my talent in elemental magic is trash. It is still that magic book, it is still that person. Even if he comprehended some principles, he is still that wooden head, unable to understand what I am reading. Thus, after reading for half the night, I can only close the book helplessly. Opening the interface, I use the old method from the past, using the system to cheat. 20 skill points. I really can't bear to part with it. Skill points is a good thing. It can allow me to learn a skill or magic, or raise a skill or magic to a circle. For example, a single skill point can raise a circle 1 ice arrow to a circle 2 ice arrow, greatly increasing the attack power and many other aspects. Now that I have just entered the second rank bronze rank, the highest I can grasp is a circle 3 magic. The relationship between the number of magic circles and rank is that a first rank spell is a circle, a second rank spell is a circle, a second rank spell is a circle, a third rank spell is a circle, a third rank spell is a circle, a fourth rank spell is a fifth rank spell, so on and so forth. If I were to throw a dozen skill points into it at one go, alright, then I would be a cripple. Not mentioning the fact that the higher the circle, the more skill points are required to raise. If the circle is too high, then the failure rate of casting will be greatly increased. The backlash of magic can easily kill me. Throwing so many skill points into a one-circle spell without much potential is in itself an extreme waste of resources. The fate points that I have recently aren't enough for me to raise the next level. At this moment, I am still a LV21 Order Knight Chaos Witch King. Originally, I should only have 10 skill points for every 2 levels. However, this dual job not only brought me twice the amount of skill points, it also gave me 4 times the expenditure. Before this, I didn't use any skill points at all. That is because I am confident that I can grasp any of the holy light and law elements of the Order Knight without using any skill points. As for necromancy magic, it isn't the time for me to learn it. Thus, I stored it all up, intending to forcefully break through the bottleneck of a high rank. But at this moment, I probably want to increase my fighting prowess very soon. I can vaguely see the path of the future. Since order and chaos are bound to develop in a balanced manner, then naturally, I have to invest more in the weaker areas. Furthermore, with my terrible talent in elemental magic, it is impossible for me to save on skill points. If there is any difference, it would be that I understand the path of the future through comprehension. I am consciously choosing the direction of development, accumulating experience and breaking through, and no longer making random choices. Looking through the messy ice magic on the interface, most of them are powerful turret-type magic. However, what I need isn't them. Very quickly, I found my target. I have already learned the one-circle ice magic, Ice Shield. Adding on the other 2 spells, I should be able to reach my goal. First circle ice barrier, steel forms a thin ice barrier on the caster's body, increasing defense by a small amount. If the caster is struck by the enemy, the attacker will be slowed down by 0.1 seconds. 2 circle ice breath, bronze casts a cone-shaped ice breath, dealing 1 to 3 ice damage. Also, it will cause the target to be slowed down by the freezing effect. The maximum range is 2 meters and the duration is no more than 6 seconds. 3 circle of ice, bronze with the caster as the center, a circle of ice is created and explodes outwards. The circle can only travel for a maximum of 15 meters. Those who come into contact with it will be slowed down by the freezing effect. The attack power of these 3 spells are close to 0, but they are rare ice magic that can slow down the target. If my estimation isn't wrong, they should belong to the same series, which can serve as a stepping stone to higher heights. First is the close-fitting Ice Shield. The ice armor that can be ignored by the naked eye doesn't have much effect, but it allows me to be enveloped by the ice element. Furthermore, it is one of the few spells that can directly create ice speed reduction, and it is this ice speed reduction that causes the attacker to be slowed down. At this moment, as I continuously activate my magic, a large amount of ice speed reduction is created from the ice armor. Next is ice breath. The ice speed reduction transforms into an icy mist. The ice speed reduction is purified and evolves, and the ground that it touches is covered with a thin layer of ice. Finally, the circle of ice. Following the command, the accumulated ice speed reduction explodes in an instant, destroying the entire room. Regardless of whether it is the furniture or the ceiling, everything is covered with a thin layer of ice. The chain of spells has achieved the effect of 1+1+1+3, but I still furrow my brows in distress. If it was just for this effect, I would have just thrown in a random high-level spell. The huge investment of 2 skill points isn't for this. Is it still not enough? It should still not be enough. Then, there is only that spell left. Thus, I open the interface once more and find the large-scale ice speed reduction spell. 6 Circle Blizzard, Gold rank create a small-scale blizzard. Use the falling snow to create a large-scale ice damage and movement speed reduction effect. Even if I light up a 6 circle spell, I won't be able to use it for a long period of time. 3 skill points, please don't let me lose everything. In the next second after I activate Blizzard, the ice armor disappears and the ice speed reduction spell that fills the room is suddenly retracted. Then, with a breath and a release, it turns into a higher quality lethal ice speed reduction spell. Ding! Congratulations host, you have learned the combination skill Ice Speed. This skill is a simulation of the cold of the natural world. No life form is completely immune to it. Brat, you have made a good choice this time. You finally know how to use me. Use the best steel on the blade, cherish your skill points. Ice Speed Reduction Spell, a type of silent and deadly ice speed reduction spell. It can be attached to the physical body and weapons, and can also be used along with ice magic. Those who come into contact with it will have their movement slowed by 1% and will receive 1 point of ice damage per second. This ability can be stacked. If the movement speed reduction effect exceeds 20%, the user will suffer from ice speed, mental rigidity, and many other negative effects. If the movement speed reduction effect exceeds 50%, the user may die from hypothermia at any time. Usage requirement: Soul Imprint Ice Treader. If host breaks through gold rank and grasps Blizzard magic, ice speed reduction will automatically evolve to the next stage. As expected, my guess wasn't wrong. Under the catalyzing effect of my soul imprint, the accumulation of ice speed reduction spell has turned into a qualitative change. Just by imagining it, one can imagine how sinister and deadly this silent ice speed reduction spell would be. As long as one fights with it, it would be stacked. By the time one realizes it, the ice speed reduction spell would be wrapped around one's body and it would be too late to reverse the situation. It would be like those pests in the fields that were suddenly frozen to death in the middle of the night. They can only watch helplessly as they die. And this is just the beginning. This ice speed reduction spell that mimics the cold of the natural world will become the cornerstone for me to reach a higher stage. In the end, it will become the impassable winter that belongs to me alone. As expected, only after passing through the cold of winter will I be able to see the warmth of spring. Only by abandoning my incomplete physical body and starting anew will there be a possibility of improving. Perhaps, with the accumulation of 4 soul imprints and 4 lives, I will be able to reach the peak of this world in this lifetime. Chapter 79. Don't let go of anyone who passes by. You won't lose out in 2 minutes, and you won't be fooled in 2 minutes. As long as you give us 2 minutes, we'll give you a brand new choice in life. Brother, the holy light is watching over you. Everything is possible. The Laughing Sisters welcome you with all sincerity. Mother Earth is tricking, protecting you. Anything you want is cheap, and anything you buy is good. Opportunity doesn't come again. Clear out the entire warehouse, and sell at a loss. Try it before you buy. Quality guaranteed. Fine 10 times for any fake one. Bayana's golden signboard is trustworthy. Clang clang clang, the god of war is great. The God of War is awesome. As long as you believe in our God of War, you'll be able to cure any illness and strengthen your body without any illness. No matter if it's a cold or stage 10 tuberculosis, as long as you believe in the God of War, you'll definitely be cured. Old Wang from the neighboring village got seriously ill 10 years ago at the age of 93. After joining our Church of the God of War, not only did he come back from the dead, he's now full of vigor. Just 2 days ago, he beat up a dozen or so kids. If you thought that this was some store's slogan, then you'd be completely wrong. This was the large plaza in front of the Lens City Lord's residence, and it was the most bustling place in the entire city with the highest flow of people. And these people jumping around and beating drums were all respectable priests of a true god. Hey, brother, are you interested in the Church of the Goddess of Wealth? If you join now, we'll even give you 2 bottles of shampoo. Phut, shampoo? The laughing sisters over there are giving you cooking oil. You lack sincerity. Please wait a moment. I'll go ask the Archbishop. We should have cooking oil in reserve. Don't be ridiculous. We're out of cooking oil. How about toilet paper and shampoo? Right, I still have 2 months of free Holy Communion rolls. Deal. But can you wait a moment? I just joined the Church of the God of War, and they only let me leave after 3 months. Sure, join before the end of the year and leave after. You still have to complete the annual mission. TSK, they still need my help to complete the annual mission for so little. I'll just go to the Church of the Goddess of Wealth. Alright, since he felt that the gift was too little, he turned around and left. However, from the looks of the dozens of small gifts in his hands, how many times had he joined and left the guild? In the past, these venerable old gentlemen should be in their own churches, waiting for people to come to their door and spread the faith and doctrine of their true God, instead of acting like the merchants they used to despise, stopping pedestrians in the square, giving gifts, and promoting their products for free. The reason? It was very simple. A powerful opponent had arrived in this city. She had obtained unbelievable prestige at an extremely fast speed. A large number of believers from other churches had changed their faith. The annual mission that was about to be completed had become an impossible mission. Wild Elf Judge Collos. At the mention of this name, all the venerable regional priests would gnash their teeth in anger. She completely ignored the unspoken rules that everyone had agreed upon. She didn't create any promotional brochures, nor did she prepare any gifts. She didn't just stand in the square and smile lightly, and countless young men would take the initiative to ask her. Some even changed their faith of their own accord in order to win the smile of a beauty. Thus, in a short half a month, the number of believers in the God of Law in this city had increased exponentially. In this world where there was a true God, believers were the source of the true God's power, the cornerstone of the true God's church, and the annual mission that every priest had to complete. The total population of the city didn't increase, but the Church of Law rapidly grew stronger. Naturally, the other churches were at a disadvantage. Faced with the endless number of believers leaving their churches, the other churches were naturally anxious. Alright, there were already pitiful young female priests wearing thin clothes, confessing while handing out flyers and gifts to passers-by. However, it was a pity that as long as Collos smiled, the situation would turn around once again. Now that the situation had developed to such an extent, even the venerable retired priest walked onto the streets, holding a thick paper bag of gifts, and began his career as a salesman. Of course, just relying on beauty wasn't enough. The crux was that the teachings and views of the God of Law were very attractive. Firstly, he didn't set up a church, so there was no need to pray to the name of a god. In other words, there was no need for a regional church. Thus, naturally, there was no need for donations. Due to the existence of the cycle of reincarnation and the true God, it was a fact that non-believers would fall into the river Styx after death. It was also a slogan used by the Order gods to promote their faith. Thus, as the people of Order, humans would usually choose an Order god to believe in. However, the church also had to make a living. Thus, the donation of 10% of the total wealth had become an unspoken rule among the churches. But now, there was someone who didn't play by the rules. He directly shouted that he didn't set up a church and didn't take the initiative to accept donations. In the end, it created a snowball effect. Firstly, a large number of merchants changed their faith. This was equivalent to 2 regions simultaneously inviting a merchant to set up a factory. One of them had an annual tax rate of 10% while the other had 0 taxes. Under similar circumstances, as long as one wasn't a fool, they would choose the latter. Of course, the other churches were hesitant on whether they should lower the donation limit. However, this wasn't a decision that a regional church could make. Furthermore, if they were to fight a price war, the other party didn't even have a church, which meant that the cost was 0. How could they win? Secondly, the god of law, Wumianzi, was a true order god. Yet, this female judge was actually able to provide job changes to the basic jobs. Yes, basic jobs, such as mage, priest, holy knight, and so on. With the help of the remnant page of the god equipment, within half a month, there were close to 100 justice knight and a dozen judges in this city. Judges require a high level of intelligence to take up the job. Following Wumianzi's ascension to the level of a true god, the advanced jobs of justice knight and judges became basic jobs. This didn't mean that the law profession had become weaker. Rather, it meant that the entire law profession had become much stronger. One had to first become a holy knight and then a warrior. Only after reaching gold rank could one advance to become a justice knight. This limited the number of justice knight. How could the talents nurtured by other churches be as trustworthy as the ones nurtured by them from scratch? In the past, there weren't many true gods capable of providing basic job classes. The most famous ones were the holy church's holy knights and holy light priests. Justice knights and judgmentus were becoming more and more common, which meant that the law job class had limitless potential. Thus, in less than 2 weeks, the god of law had become the hottest topic in the entire city, and Crocer had become a popular figure known to every household. Of course, there are still some imperfections. For example, this beautiful female priest, equivalent to the judges of judgment. After preaching, she would always ask, is there any mystical creature that can turn into a male? After receiving a negative answer, her forced smile is even more heartbreaking. It makes one wonder if the true god of law, Wumianzi, likes cute boys, which is why this beautiful priest is forced to search everywhere. The god of law Wumianzi likes cute boys the most. There was actually a rumor that started spreading. Boy your head, I'm heterosexual. Alright, when I heard this rumor, I immediately crushed the teacup in my hands and flew into a rage. Even though my pathetic luck had made it a habit for me to be shot while lying down, if I were to become the guardian god of gays and cute boys because of this, I would rather die. Kolos originally came to the surface to search for a treasure to dispel her curse or to change her gender. However, if she were to leave just like that, it would be underestimating her sense of responsibility as an enforcer. She left the underground world after applying for a mission to preach. Following her application, it was said that Shuati received a few hundred mission applications in a single afternoon. Of course, the sudden departure of so many people would naturally cause a huge negative impact on the supreme law. Shuati didn't approve of it, but the seemingly honest old bull was actually a black-hearted person. Naturally, he didn't have any good intentions. He directly said that there were only 2 slots and that they could decide for themselves. Alright, the bunch of hopeless old bachelors from the Hall of Justice fought until they were dizzy. It was said that there were a total of 300 people who participated in the private brawl and less than 10 of them were able to come to work on the second day. It was truly tragic. In the end, the one who emerged victorious was a Gold Pinnacle Law incantation user and a Gold Pinnacle Justice Knight. Naturally, they became Kolos's flower protectors, companions. I really couldn't understand why Kolos, a legend rank judge, would need your protection. Yes, the Night Elf Kolos is a top-tier judge who was converted from the Great Druil. Although her personality is soft and not tough enough, despite being 700 years old, her strength isn't weak at all. She, who placed great importance on her responsibility, even if she had personal matters to attend to, she still treated preaching as her top priority. She placed the treasure to dispel the curse at the back of her mind. I am indeed grateful for her loyalty to her job, but can you not ask the other party if they have a miraculous item that can turn them into a boy after preaching? It makes it seem as though we are looking for a transsexual item instead. You should be happy, former Lord Wumianzi. Alright, That stupid cat saw through it. Even though I was grumbling non-stop, I was actually quite happy about it. After all, the divine power server that I sacrificed everything for didn't go to waste. The faith in law is also spreading at a rapid pace. Of course, without building a church, as long as one believes in law, one can use the power of law. While the faith in law is spreading at a rapid pace, it also causes the Sulphur Mountain Supreme Court, which also serves as the Church of Law, to lose control over the users of law. However, all of this is within my expectations. The Church of the Law is destined to develop in a state of disunity, allowing the other churches to heave a sigh of relief. After all, in their traditional view, the Church is the root of maintaining their faith. As long as the faith in law can spread, it is enough. Churches and whatnot aren't important in the first place. With more people, and more people speaking up, it would instead start to change the original teachings. I, Shu, imitate the God of holy light, giving up on myself and turning into the rules of law. From now on, I am the law, and the law is me. There is no need to chant my God's name in order to believe in and obtain the power of law. All you need to do is to believe in and carry out the rules of law. This is my godly ascension oath. My godly ascension oath said that the law itself is Wumianzi, and Wumianzi will turn into the law itself. This is equivalent to completely giving up on myself. A true God who doesn't have a self will not be able to give down a God's prophecy. Then, the churches that serve the true God naturally aren't important. Since that is the case, as long as the law is spread, Wumianzi, the God power server, will eventually become as strong as the God of holy light. My next goal can then be realized. You can be smug all you want. However, there aren't many gold-ranked judges like Kolos, right? The progress in other areas won't be as fast. So, good steel must be used on steel blades. Let her follow us to the Ottoman Empire. UN. Could it be that you can get Wumianzi to give down a god's prophecy? She is wholeheartedly searching for the clue to dispel the curse. Of course. I can't. However, I have Wumianzi's handwritten message before he ascended to godhood. I guarantee that it was personally written by Wumianzi. Furthermore, if she follows me, she will get a chance to draw the god's prophecy once a month. It will be much better than running around like a headless fly. At the very least, more people won't think that Wumianzi likes boys anymore. Chapter 80. Whispers of the Demon is the first overture of Aish's 7 calamities and the beginning of everything. Following the awakening of the will of chaos, the cultists and demon worshippers who worshipped the malevolent god of chaos started to create chaos and unrest in the world. When all of the ancient elemental gods were released, the arrival of the elemental tide changed the entire world. Other than the elemental creatures and magical beasts that increased in numbers, other than the emergence of experts from various races, it also gave the undead emperors in the undead plane the possibility of returning to the main plane. Furthermore, the shadow of the demon army invading the main plane was buried. At the same time, the ambitious and idealistic people started to stir. Among them, the most dangerous ones were the believers of the evil god who wished to establish an independent country and welcome the descent of the evil god. The underground city lords who were ambitious and planned to return to the surface. Not long ago, this overture was activated. Other than the unlucky fellow who was weakened to death while he was still in the sealed stage and was eaten the moment he was released, the other elemental gods would be released one by one and a large number of elemental creatures would come to this world. Of course, if it wasn't for the epic quest brought about by the overture, I wouldn't have been able to resurrect so perfectly. 10 years later, when the expansion pack Vulture of War was released, under the drive of the schemers and ambitious people, the entire continent was in a mess. Then, what exactly happened in these 10 years? Firstly, it was the emergence of talents from various countries. All kinds of new equipment and troops emerged one after another. The frantic rise in the strength of the country made the rulers of the big countries restless. In addition, some organizations and individuals fanned the flames, such as assassinating the nephew of an emperor in the name of a small country, providing the fuse for the big countries who were already looking forward to war. At the start of the war, it was just a big country swallowing up a small country. Following the victory, when the entire country fell into a frenzy of war, when endless greed and war benefits blinded the eyes of the emperor and nobles, when countless new knight lords required more land, and when the country's strength rose day by day, the vulture of war circled above the entire human world. At the end of the day, this was just the law of decline. The surface society with humans as the main body had developed to a certain extent, and the major countries hoped to go further. They hoped to become the emperor that unified the entire human society, or they hoped to become the overlord of a region. Even without the instigation of conspirators, the outbreak of war would still be inevitable. For certain supreme existences, the peach was ripe, and it was time to reap the harvest. And so, the war horn was blown once more, and the supreme holy war was waiting even earlier than it already was. World War. When the major countries brought their vassal states to start an all-out war, there were even people who happily predicted that after the war, a new empire that spanned across the entire continent would bring human society into a new stage. However, the cruel reality slapped the big countries in the face, telling them that it wasn't humans playing single player in this world, but all races playing PvP together. The rise of the Elf Empire along with the various tribes, the invasion of the various Beastmen tribes, and the invasion of the underground allied forces allowed the human countries, who outnumbered them by 100 times, to witness what it meant by gold were like cannon fodder, giant dragons were like dogs, legendaries were as common as dogs, and semigods were nothing. Before the human army, which outnumbered them by 100 times, had the chance to laugh at the numbers of the opposing army, they immediately witnessed the difference in individual strength. What it meant by 1 against 100, or 10 against 10,000, what it meant by the command center being destroyed by the other party before the war even started, what it meant by a cavalry charging into the city walls. A commander might not even be as strong as an elite veteran. This war was really unwinnable. If it wasn't for the underground allied forces falling into internal strife due to the uneven distribution of resources, if it wasn't for the major countries unhesitatingly sacrificing the interests of the smaller countries, trading space for time, using land in exchange for the temporary satisfaction and division of the underground allied forces, delaying the time of the final battle, the war might have ended long ago. Then, the invasion of the undead calamity and the appearance of the undead semigods who were exiled to the other world since the ancient times made the humans understand the pain of lacking top-notch fighting strength, and the futility of competing with the calamity army in terms of numbers and cannon fodder. As for the invasion of the demons and the last few calamities, in reality, they were just a few more stabs to the already devastated Asia continent. Anyway, they were already on the verge of death, and if they were left alone, they would die anyway. Along with the endless deaths, the war would continue to escalate. When the goddess of order and goddess of chaos personally enter the battlefield, everything should be over. To speak the truth, every time I look at this history, the feeling of helplessness that comes from the bottom of my heart makes me feel like I have no motivation at all. In the face of this kind of historical trend, the strength of an individual is completely negligible. Prevent the outbreak of war. I am not that naive, but there are indeed some things that I can do, and I have already done it. For example, the invasion of the underground world is still unavoidable due to the strong desires of the underground dwellers. However, under the leadership of Sulphur Mountain City, at least their aggressiveness would be much stronger. As long as it is dealt with properly, they can even work together to resist against the other calamities. Shiluor Empire, the variable that I created single-handedly, has another bizarre effect. The invasion of the Undead Plains undead calamity has been brought forward. So, it should have started 70 years later, and not the 30 years at most that Descartes told me. Perhaps, I should thank the hard work of the head of the Council of Dark Knight, the second Senator Feyman. Does it seem like a bad thing? No, it is actually a good thing. Following the arrival of the elemental tide, the connection between the various planes will become easier and easier. It is impossible for the undead emperors, who have been eyeing the Asia continent for a long time, to not come. Furthermore, if they were to come earlier, they would become a powerful external enemy that would cause the civil war in Asia to end prematurely. Furthermore, to forcefully enter the main plane at the start of the elemental tide, it is inevitable that the undead emperors would suffer a loss in strength and military strength. At the very least, the 3 undead emperors who have reached the level of a true god would definitely be unable to enter. Thus, The scale of the undead calamity this time would definitely be much smaller than the one in history, giving us the possibility of dealing with them in batches. Thus, the instruction I gave to the royal faction is to reconcile with Feyman and push forward with the invasion of the other planes. The earlier he arrives, the better. If they are able to arrive before the invasion of the underground world, that would be even better. Then, using the excuse of fighting against the undead together, they could find the humans to cut a piece of land or snatch a piece of land from the hands of the undead calamity. Who knows, after the war, both sides might be able to coexist and accumulate sufficient fighting strength to deal with the upcoming troubles. Of course, this is the good aspect of the undead calamity's invasion being brought forward. The bad aspect is that if they aren't even able to withstand the weakened undead calamity, they would be doomed. Or if the Underground Alliance army loses control, or if they aren't able to come to an agreement, then, dealing with both the undead calamity and the Underground Alliance army at the same time would also be the end of the world. Well, since the future is filled with calamities and there isn't much hope in the first place, then, we might as well try it. The Ottoman Empire, it has only been established for 700 years. It is considered the shortest among the superpowers. However, they aren't the weakest. On the contrary, due to the successive generations of wise monarchs who are determined to forge ahead, the country is rich and powerful. Instead, there are faint signs of them catching up. The capital, Kajisi City, is located along the river. It is divided into a total of 8 districts with a total population of close to 10 million. It is one of the top superpowers in the entire continent. Among them, the largest Pearl district has a population of 3 million and is known as the Sleepless City. If one were to describe the Ottoman Empire, then, luxurious would be the most suitable adjective. Furthermore, the countless oil lamps and magical searchlights along the river, the luxurious horse carriages along the road, the pleasure boats and cargo ships on the river, the elegantly dressed gentlemen and ladies strolling along the river, and the merchants who come from all over the continent. Without a doubt, this city is filled with astonishing vitality. Now that the inauguration ceremony of the new emperor is just around the corner, the trees along the river are filled with colorful flags and jewels. The main road is actually paved with expensive silk carpets. Even the gold-plated oil lamps along the road are burning with the highest grade of mermaid oil. While the guests who come to visit are secretly cursing the local tycoons, they can't help but admire the power and wealth of the Ottoman Empire from the bottom of their hearts. The reason why the inauguration ceremony is so grand is not just for the sake of reputation. Originally, the 26 countries that are subordinate to the Ottoman Empire have already made it a large country. Now, with 42 countries as subordinates, it means that the Ottoman Empire has completely gotten rid of the role of a political upstart and has become a superpower that plays an important role in the world. Of course, there are some people who don't think this way. They are full of evil ideas and are prepared to cause destruction. But now, he is troubled. After all, meeting old friends in a foreign land is a rare joyous event in life. However, he really wants to pretend that he doesn't know the few old friends in front of him. As expected of the City of Pearls, how extravagant. To think that they would even give out night pearls to passers-by. Cut the crap and take it. Alright. Those are the Goblin Ingo and Kabbalah. They are old acquaintances of Sulphur Mountain City. Right now, they are eyeing the jewels that are decorating the tree. Even though the surroundings are filled with onlookers and everyone is pointing at them, they are still happily stuffing the jewels into the gunny sack. Oh, high-grade mermaid oil. What a waste. It is even used as an additive for my old Hoyle's fuel. He recognizes the people in front of him, but he would rather not recognize them. They are indeed here to deliver gifts to the Ottoman Empire in hopes of reaping a bountiful harvest. Calculating the time, they should have arrived a long time ago. However, to be able to meet them here by chance, it can be considered as an ill-fated fate. Bastards, it is you bunch of thieves again. You are even here in the day. What? Thieves? What nonsense are you spouting? Aren't these placed on the streets for others to take? That's right. It is yours just because you say so. If you call it, will it reply to you? Alright, even though the goblin Kabbalah roars back at them, his movements don't slow down at all. He swiftly finishes stuffing the jewels and runs away, dragging the gunny sack along with him. Cough cough, don't run, you bunch of bastards. Their footsteps, honed from fighting with Sulphur Mountain City's town security for a long period of time, are incomparably swift. Furthermore, they are all underground experts who don't care about their reputation. How can the normal human guards catch up to them? Instead, they run until they are out of breath, falling further and further behind. Come and chase us then. Ha, the days without the town security are really as lonely as snow. Ha, Kabbalah, I am already invincible. Ouch. Alright, Kabbalah, who is famous for being an expert at digging holes in Sulphur Mountain City, slips and falls onto the ground, his mouth full of mud. Kabbalah, what happened to you? What happened to you? Didn't I say that a hole must be filled up? Isn't this the wrath of the heavens? Who was the one who threw the watermelon skin, so inconsiderate? Kabbalah still owes old Hoyle 100,000 gold coins. If he were to die, can you all afford it? Alright, I can still understand his anger at the start, but the latter part goes astray. I don't have 100,000, 100. Only 100. Furthermore, dwarf, you obviously cheated last night. I won't even return you that 100. Even though there is a huge bump on his head, the goblin Kabbalah struggles with all his might, using his index finger to form a 1, afraid that this shameless old dwarf would take the opportunity to put the huge debt on his head. Indeed, if Kabbalah had 100,000 gold coins, he wouldn't need to drag a tattered gunny sack along the streets to pick up the ornaments on the tree. These can be considered as jewelry, but in reality, the quality is very low and it isn't worth much. Only goblins like Ingo and Kabbalah, who view wealth as their life, would do such a thing. Alright, I really can't stand it anymore. But apparently, there is someone who can't stand it anymore. You bastards. You even dare to do such things in other cities. Silly town security. How is this possible? Didn't you all go to the north of the continent? Damn it, there is still that fierce dog. Who is the fierce dog? Don't give random nicknames to others. Momo's name is very pleasant to hear. Silly big lass. Alright, I got it. However, with the two town security clenching their fists, one at the front and one at the back, and a few experts from the Hall of Judgment holding the fort by the side, the three dwarfs fall into despair. Don't hit my face. Don't hit my face. You don't even want your face anymore, how can you not hit me? This time, even the passers-by are amused by this farce. Seizing the opportunity, I, who is wearing my silver mask, smiles at the few guards who are watching the show. Good evening, gentlemen. The night is really beautiful, isn't it? May I ask, which direction is the embassy of the Donglan Principality? Chapter 81. In the palace district of Kajisi City, there was a cluster of palaces with a rich exotic style. That was the diplomatic district and embassy. The Donglan Principality didn't have an embassy in the Ottoman Empire. In a certain villa, even though it was already late at night, a certain young lady who was deceived was still fuming. Darned Dasos. He didn't say that when he invited us. This is a fraud, an insult to the entire duchy. The 14-year-old young lady was throwing a tantrum in the room. Unfortunately, the one she was facing was her elder sister, who was smiling bitterly. Yes, they deceived us. But as a small country, what can we do? Are we going to announce it and refuse to submit? I'm afraid that they will view it as an insult to the empire and the new king and start an all-out war. I'm afraid that this is the reason they need to start a war. Yes, this time, the Donglan Principality didn't have the intention to become a subordinate country. Princess Renee was only tricked here. Similarly, there were a few other small countries that refused to submit. Based on the current development, the rise of the Ottoman Empire is unstoppable. If we insist on not submitting when the other countries have agreed to submit, we will definitely become a thorn in everyone's side. Just to protect the dignity of a big country, the Ottoman Empire will have to suppress us. Furthermore, we have just ended the war with the beast men. With our current strength, we can't afford to fight against them. Rain clenched her teeth and said, "This is clearly a fake show for real, using force to suppress people." Yes, they saw through this, that's why they tricked us here. But Big Sister Kelly, didn't you say that the Mist bloodline will never submit? Let's fight it out with them. The wood elf lady in front of them was the royal teacher who had served the Mist royal family for close to 500 years, Kelly for short. She had taught more than 20 monarchs of the royal family and was even the first teacher of the legendary Gemini star. Her prestige in the country was extremely high and she was deeply trusted by the royal family. So, if we can make the Mist bloodline submit, Dasos and the Ottoman Kingdom will definitely gain a higher reputation. And if we don't submit, he will find a reason to start a war. No matter how we deal with it, he won't be at a disadvantage. That's why he is playing such tricks. Why? Weren't they all humans? Why are they more difficult to deal with than the evil orcs? The face of the young princess was full of fatigue. These days in Kajisi City, facing the honeyed nobles, she felt that it was more difficult to deal with them than on the battlefield. It is precisely because they are all humans that they are difficult to deal with. Your Highness, have you forgotten about the destruction of the Mist Kingdom? What did the Mist Kingdom get in return for guarding the borders of the entire human society? It was the shameless betrayal of the human countries and the heresy of the Church. It was a vicious stab in the back. Never trust those foolish, short-sighted, and dishonest human rulers, as well as those faithless order gods. Although she was smiling, the green-haired wood elf's gentle words were filled with distrust towards the entire human society and the order gods. Furthermore, if you agree to sign the vassal country agreement, your support rate in the country will plummet. Perhaps, this is also one of their motives. After all, the Mist bloodline has hurt them greatly, and your previous performance should have made them wary. Perhaps, this is the reason why they didn't care about their reputation and set a trap for us. Renee was instantly speechless. Following which, her face was filled with disbelief. Just because her performance during the Beastman invasion was too good. In order to suppress her reputation and force her and the Donglan Principality to lower their heads, they came up with a forced vassal country? Impossible. No, the possibility is very high. Who asked you to have two illustrious ancestors, and the Mist bloodline is filled with geniuses? Naturally, they would be wary of you. Furthermore, you look similar to the twin princes. No, you look exactly the same. No matter if there is another demon invasion or the Night of Defender, they won't be able to take it. As they spoke, their gazes turned towards the oil painting on the wall. It was a painting of a battlefield. The war was ongoing, and young generals were advancing with flags in their hands. It was a pair of twins. A sword-wielding young man was slashing down in mid-air. The golden holy light shone on him, making him look like a deity descending to the mortal world. However, even in the most intense and despairing moment of the battlefield, he still wore a warm and sunny smile, as though there was a smooth road ahead of him. Behind him, there was another young man with the same face. He held a sword in his left hand and a wand in his right. Flames from hell were burning on his right arm, and his young face was filled with anger. Behind them was the heroic charge of the knights, and in front of them was an endless sea of beast men and demons. At the corner of the painting, one could faintly see the flags of various human countries, expressing the anger and dissatisfaction of the artist. It was a replica of the famous painting of the Donglan Principality, The Last Princes. Prince Roland and Prince Cavendish? Big Sister Kelly, are they really that powerful? If they were in my current situation, would they be much better? Renee was a little depressed. This feeling of guilt towards her ancestors made her feel powerless. Don't say such disappointing words. You've already done very well. Kelly shook her head. This kind of comparison is meaningless. Renee is Renee, and the twin princes are the twin princes. If Cavendish was in your position, he would probably use his sword to kill to his heart's content. That would be the only option, and the situation would be even worse. In other words, if Prince Roland was here, perhaps the situation would be very different. Renee keenly noticed the hidden meaning in Kelly's words, which made her even more depressed. Hearing this, Kelly was stunned for a moment, before revealing a nostalgic smile. Ah, Roland. If it was him, he wouldn't have allowed himself to be in such a passive situation from the start. That brat looks like a sunny and cheerful person, but is actually full of evil tricks. It's enough that he doesn't trick others, but would he allow others to trick him? On the other hand, Cavendish would definitely fall for it, but most of the time, he would disregard everything and charge out with brute force. Renee was a little curious. Big sister Kelly before her was a true elder of the royal family and a living library, but all along, she didn't like to talk about the past. Now that this was a rare opportunity, she had to grab hold of it. That, Big sister Kelly, can you tell me about the deeds of the two princes? Are they really as powerful as the rumors say? Renee leaned weakly on Kelly's body, allowing her to braid her hair and touch up her makeup. This was a daily habit of hers for the past 2 years. She thickened her eyebrows, drew on her eyeliner, cut off the excess hair, and used makeup to cover up her overly fair skin. Under Kelly's skillful hands, the difference between a male and female face was further blurred. Under the increasingly disadvantageous situation, the Donglan Principality needed a heroic knight who was similar to the legendary Holy Knight Roland and not a noble lady who was destined to be busy with social events. Although it's inconceivable, in reality, they are much stronger than the rumors say. If it wasn't for the outbreak of the war, that era would have belonged to the two of them. Hearing this, Rain suddenly raised her head, and the makeup brush went askew on her face, causing a large part of her makeup to be ruined. Impossible, they were the same age as me when they died in the war. No, what Big Sister Kelly said must be true. I'm really useless. If only Prince Roland could make the decision for me. Phut, what surprised Rain was Callie covering her mouth and giggling. Big Sister Kelly, what are you laughing at? I'm serious. No, Renee, it's just that someone said this before. Who? Roland, he always says, oh my, this is so troublesome. It's a waste of my reading time. If only Carwens could take care of everything, then I could read and slack off every day. To think that a legendary hero would have such a lazy side. That Roland, who was viewed as a holy knight and the role model of the royal family, actually likes to slack off. Does Prince Roland like reading a lot? He likes it very much. No matter if it's art, music, literature, history, astronomy, geography, or even the messy alchemy and engineering, he likes them all. If he wasn't sent to the church to become a holy knight, if it wasn't for the sudden outbreak of the war, I'm afraid that he would have become a world-famous scholar. Wait, Big Sister Kelly, wasn't he only 10 when he was sent to become a holy knight? How could he read at such a young age? The two princes already knew how to read when they were 1 year old. Otherwise, how could they be recognized as geniuses in the world? But there's a little story behind it. Amazing. Story? It usually takes a year or so for a normal boy to learn how to walk. Even if the mist bloodline allows a child to gain intelligence early, but for Cavendish to learn how to walk and a few simple words a month after he was born, he is already a super genius that can be recorded in the history books. What happened to His Highness? Him. Cavendish can walk, but he is still crawling. Cavendish can call for daddy and mommy, but he only knows how to cry. And when they were a month old and we were all worried for Roland, Cavendish started snatching his milk bottle with his strength. He finally spoke. He first said to Cavendish, hey, lad, you might not be afraid of being sliced, but I am. Can you take it easy? Can you be more professional? We are normal babies, we should learn how to cry now. Come, cry with me, war. Come, raise the pitch, war. Then, he realized that Cavendish couldn't understand and continued snatching, so he shouted for help. Hey, can you guys control this rascal? He already knows how to bully his brother. Mitch, how dare you snatch my food, I will take you down with me. A month-old child actually knows how to hide his talents. This is simply unimaginable. Why not? I have taught many geniuses of the Mist royal family over the past few centuries, but I have never seen such a ridiculous child. Everyone thinks that Cavendish is a super genius, but Roland is even more ridiculous. If not for him splitting his attention on various subjects and missing the golden period of training, he wouldn't be any worse than Cavendish. Can you tell me more about Prince Roland? Looking at the fatigued Renee, Kelly caressed her hair, just like when she was young, and lowered her head to kiss the young lady's forehead. Then, since you are tired after a busy day, let's treat it as a bedtime story. Roland, even though he is smart, he is unreliable. Once, he excitedly dragged me to see his new invention, even saying gleefully, look, this transparent thing will definitely sell well, I call it glass, it will definitely earn a lot of money, this way our citizens' lives will be much better. Is glass invented by Lord Roland? If I remember correctly, It was around 6,000 years ago. At that time, he didn't know. When I told him, his depressed face was heartbreaking, and he even muttered, "It's fine, let's invent movable type printing." Printing technology? Isn't that monopolized by the god of knowledge? I told him about it at that time, which made him even more depressed. But the next day, he started to study astronomy and biology again. That so-called survival of the fittest theory of evolution, even though it seems to be groundless, now that I think about it, it does make some sense. For example, species aren't created by the gods, they are changeable. Living things evolve, and natural selection is the driving force behind the evolution of living things. All living things have a tendency to over-reproduce, and their living space and food are limited, so living things have to fight for survival. Aren't all living things created by the gods? Don't all living things originate from the origin of order, the chaos abyss? Isn't that an obvious lie? But he wasn't depressed, and he quickly found a new toy. He has always been like this, never knowing what it means to be discouraged or give up. Even when the war started, he quickly grew from a rookie to a true god of war. If it wasn't for the fact that we were facing enemies 100 times stronger than us. Under the accumulation of exhaustion and anger, Renee quickly fell asleep as she spoke. Looking at the young lady taking off her armor, Kelly fell into deep thought. That armor is gorgeous. On the surface, it is a mithril-heavy armor, but in reality, it is just a soft armor with a layer of light alloy, making it even lighter than leather armor. It is impossible for the Mist bloodline to produce geniuses every generation. Renee isn't a genius, and she isn't even a qualified warrior. A 14-year-old Iron Rank warrior is no different from a commoner. During the charge of 3,000 miles, all she was responsible for was raising the flag and shouting the slogan, leading the charge while trembling. If she were to really meet an opponent, any beastman would be able to kill her easily. However, it is a pity that the current Donglan Principality is plagued with both internal and external threats, and it does require an ancient heroic knight princess. Renee has sacrificed a lot, but based on how the current situation is developing, she still has to continue sacrificing, even if her sacrifice might not be rewarded at all, and what awaits her is infamy and the incomprehension of her citizens. Sigh, perhaps Renee is right. This burden is really too heavy for her. Roland, where are you? Kelly caresses the dagger by her waist. On the hilt of the dagger, 2 gigantic dragons are circling around each other, and 2 night illumination pearls are embedded in it, emitting a white light and a black light. This is the lamp of life, a secret art passed down by the royal families of the various countries. When a member of the royal family is born, the first drop of their blood is taken for a ritual, and this pearl becomes their lamp of life. If the lamp of life is extinguished, it means that the person is dead. This can also be used to prevent people from impersonating the members of the royal family. And this decorative dagger with 2 pearls is the lamp of life of the twins Roland and Cavendish. Cavendish's lamp of life is getting darker and darker. Looks like he is about to completely fall into chaos, but the situation of Roland's lamp of life is extremely strange. It lights up for a moment, extinguishes for a moment, turns white for a moment, and turns black for a moment. 100 years ago, the lamp of life was so dark that it even surpassed Cavendish's. Not too long ago, it strangely extinguished, and 2 months later, it lights up and turns white again. If this lamp of life is reflecting the real situation, Roland is still in this world. His life should be very exciting. For some reason, the dagger trembles slightly, as though it is being summoned by something. Kelly instinctively stands up and stretches her head to take a look, only to realize that there is a figure under the tree. Roland. But when she looks over, she realizes that it is just a willow tree drifting along with the wind. Shaking her head, Kelly closes the window. Looks like I am the same as Renee, hoping for a reliable shoulder. In a corner that she doesn't notice, under the window, a figure wearing a silver mask is gnashing his teeth in anger. Dasos, how dare you set your sights on the Mist country? I will let you suffer a fate worse than what happened in history. Chapter 82. The Ottoman Empire is undoubtedly a large country. Their royal guards, the White Wolf Royal Guards, are undoubtedly Tier 3 elite light cavalry. The collective charge of the 3 silver rank cavalry regiments is unstoppable. Alright, this isn't the underground world where they use gold rank as cannon fodder. At the very least, the small countries bordering them will definitely not be able to withstand it. Compared to the long-lived species, humans are definitely inferior in terms of individual combat power. However, humans are a race that relies on tools and external objects to win. The White Wolf Royal Guards can only reach silver rank when equipped with equipment and mounts. The so-called large country is superior in all aspects of agriculture, industry, alchemy, animal breeding, and talent training. Only then can it nurture more powerful troops and military power. For example, the armor of the White Wolf Guards is made of micellar mithril alloy. Not to mention the blueprint of the light cavalry armor, even the alloy formula used as the raw material is a top secret of the Ottoman Empire. The micellar dragon spear, violent javelin, and violent sword that they are equipped with are all high-quality alchemy tools. As for their mounts, the Marlow Special Warhorse is an excellent warhorse that has been bred for many generations. It is said that this warhorse is a carnivorous animal. This luxurious equipment allows a bronze rank knight to skyrocket to the combat power of a silver rank human. Coupled with the absolute advantage in numbers and tactics, they are even more powerful. Not only the special forces, but all human troops are also extremely reliant on equipment. For example, a former farmer who has only received a year of militia training, if he is given a dragon spear, he will be a Tier 1 low-level spearman. If he goes through 2 years of shooting training, if he is given a magic crossbow, he will be a Tier 1 middle-level crossbow shooter. If he goes through more than 5 years of rigorous training, equipped with a full set of alchemy heavy armor and alchemy potions that increase his strength, he will be a Tier 2 low-level heavy armor fanatic warrior. If the griffins and raptors that are trained from young grow to the point that they can be ridden, then the Tier 3 troop, Griffin Knight, will be born. Of course, this is an expensive troop that only the nobles who can afford the food expenses of the griffins can take up. However, due to excessive reliance on external objects, it is inevitable that the White Wolf Guards are only bronze rank infantry when they dismount. At this time, cooperation and organization are needed. Humans are also extremely famous in the art of war. Using the cooperation of troops to make full use of their strengths and avoid their weaknesses is a must for every commander. The inheritance and innovation of technology and culture, the continuous development of new soldier types and new equipment, plus the fact that the human race's growth rate was definitely the fastest among all the races, they were never afraid of a war of attrition. This was the fundamental reason why humans, who did not have long lifespans and did not have any racial talents, were able to become the overlords of this world. For example, the elves were indeed strong. It was common for them to reach the silver tier at adulthood. However, it would take them 200 years to reach adulthood. That was enough for the humans to reproduce for 4 to 5 generations. The Dark Elves, the only unusual species among the elves, had strong reproductive abilities as well. However, their infighting was also the most intense. However, in a damned place like the underground, without cruel elimination, no matter how many resources they had, it would still be insufficient. Thus, in the eyes of other races, humans only have one advantage, being able to reproduce. However, this advantage is enough. Indeed, my fake gold rank might not be able to defeat the true gold rank of your elf race with the enhancement of their bloodline. However, it isn't a loss for me to exchange 10 of them for one of you. You can replace me after I die. As long as my equipment can keep up, I will be able to recover in less than 10 years. You elves, on the other hand, have to wait 200 years for a new generation to mature. Can you afford it? As long as the population is sufficient, exceptional geniuses will naturally appear. At the very least, based on what I know, there will be a few semigod-old fellows in every top-notch empire. However, the human kingdom isn't invulnerable. When the underground invades in the future, facing against the underground allied army in terms of absolute strength and battle techniques, the human kingdom also tasted the flaw of lacking top-notch fighting strength. And so, with the need to promote new progress, they once again ushered in a period of rapid development in machinery, alchemy, and magic. That strange Grade 5 troop, the Magic Machinery Dragon, was the crystallization of the new magic machinery and magic arrays. Alright, let's not talk about the headache-inducing future for now. Right now, I am still having a headache. A tall tree attracts the wind. In history, the Ottoman Empire also used its actions to illustrate the meaning of this phrase. Regardless of whether it is the invading underground Allied army or the undead calamity, they all unhesitatingly made it their primary target. Enjoying the shade under a large tree? No, according to international rules, under the summons of the main country, the subordinate countries have to step onto the battlefield. Furthermore, they are under the command of the main country, so it is certain that they will be used as cannon fodder. Thinking about the cruel war that is to come, the smaller the country, the thinner its foundation, the easier it is to be destroyed. Thus, I definitely won't allow the Donglan Principality to become a subordinate country of the Ottoman Empire. However, just like what I heard before, if I were to reject them directly, it might lead to a war. This dilemma is really difficult for me to make a decision. If it's difficult to choose, then don't choose. Just think of a way to turn it into a farce. As long as this alliance fails, the situation will change after a few years. Of course, if I don't take revenge, I won't be able to take this lying down. Even though I said so, I still don't know how to go about it. To move 1,000 catties with 4 ounces of strength, one must also have 4 ounces of strength. Compared to the colossal Orland Empire, I might not even have 1 ounce of strength in my hands. Even if I want to move 1,000 catties with 4 ounces of strength, I still need to have 4 ounces of strength. Compared to the colossal Ottoman Empire, I might not even have 1 ounce of strength on my hands. As a newcomer, I am completely clueless. I don't have sufficient information and connections, so I am unable to come up with a reliable plan of action. This is also the reason why I am at the entrance of this filthy underground saw. It stinks. Even if I want to do a mission to please that count, there is no need for me to accept this kind of mission. The former Queen of Banshees and current Queen of Slime pinches her nose and complains to me with a face full of disgust. Look, it is your kind. I point to the smelly underground saw. There, a quagmire slime is struggling. Its body is filled with disgusting filth. With just a glance, I am disgusted. Harlois, who has transformed into a black cat, pounces on me. I am the great Queen of Banshees. I am the omniscient of magic. I am not a filthy slime. 1 claw, 2 bites, 3 tail flicks. It is a well-practiced feline technique. However, when the black cat uses it, it seems more like an act of cuteness than an attack. However, I don't ignore it like I did in the past because the current Harloi's biting attack does have some power. Frozen air, a silent and fatal cold air. It can be attached to one's physical body and weapons. It can also be used along with ice magic. Those who come into contact with it will have their movement slowed by 1% and will receive 1 point of ice damage per second. This ability can be stacked. If the movement speed is reduced by more than 20%, the target will suffer from various negative effects such as freezing, paralysis of thought, etc. If the movement speed is reduced by more than 50%, the target may die from hypothermia. From a certain standpoint, a mage's magic pet is their clone. Gowl's Touch, Licker's Touch, and other spells that can only be released by a mage at close range can also be released through a magic pet. However, I didn't expect that the one who benefits the most from this passive ability named Frozen Air would be Harlois. In the form of a cat or bat, she is a small target. Her attack rate is high and her sneak attacks are extremely stealthy. The other side of the low damage from her claws and fangs is that it is extremely difficult to attract the attention of the target. If she were to stack dozens of layers of frozen air on you, you might not be far from death. Alright, but in front of me, who already knows this move, it is meaningless. With a light step, a twist, and a pinch, I pinch the cat's greatest weakness, the back of its neck. Then, with 2 twirls, I get a dead cat whose eyes are seeing stars after being spun around. H, you are still too inexperienced to fight against me. I smile gleefully. Due to the EXP penalty that is getting more and more ridiculous, I haven't leveled up recently. I am also reluctant to spend my precious skill points on that darned ice magic. However, on the way here, I have been practicing Holy Light and the power of law, causing my combat strength to skyrocket. What grows even faster, surprisingly, is my swordsmanship and close combat skills. These should be the specialization of warriors, After all, they lack the support of supernatural powers. However, to me, learning swordsmanship is like letting my body relive the memories of the past. There is no need for me to deliberately learn it. This twist and pinch might seem simple, but in reality, it contains an exquisite footwork and a profound meaning of swordsmanship. Combining the two into one, it is clean and neat. It is really cool. If I were to see it in the outside world, it would definitely attract the praises of those who know their stuff and the screams of beauties. Why am I so cool? Roland. Can you be any more ridiculous? Everyone else is fighting, but you are actually playing with a cat. Momo's sword moves like the wind as she chases after a group of rat men who have settled down in the underground tunnels. Looking at their red appearance, they must have attacked a passerby not too long ago. Alright, although the fierce dog is not bad and can barely be considered a beauty, it is obvious that the dark elf's sense of beauty isn't trustworthy. Thus, I turn my gaze towards Kolos. Lord God Envoy, even if you are the executor of the will of our Lord, such a lazy action will bring shame to our Lord. Please fight seriously. The wild elf Kolos waves a huge rattan staff that is even taller than her. Lightning flashes again and again in the pitch-black underground tunnels. Every flash is followed by screams of agony. Due to the lack of firepower in our party and the obvious excess of law professions, she took out her old profession as a storm druid and acted as a damage dealer. Summoning lightning can be used underground. Although its power is obviously reduced, it has already subverted the common sense of a druid. It is enough to prove her astonishing attainments and talent in controlling lightning. Koros Aintan, gender, Kolos, race, wild elf, job, LV60 druid LV12 storm druid LV20 judge LV3 storm judge, Kolos self-created legend job, total level, 95, overall level, 83, soul imprint, storm envoy, overall evaluation, legendary rank priest. System evaluation, a thigh worth relying on, and it is a beautiful thigh. As for that gender Kolos, that joke is too old, so I won't comment on it. Right, the spring of a drowned man will be added to the lottery soon. Work hard on your lottery and remember to please the beauty. Although my handwritten letter and Diana's testimony did make her believe that I am Wumiansi's god envoy, I don't know why, but she always gives me very strict requirements. You can't do this, you have to be strict with yourself, it is damaging to the image of my lord, as though I am throwing the face of her god. Mph, throwing the face of Wumiansi all day long, do you think that I am reliable in the past? Alright, tainting the true god that a priest believes in is equivalent to throwing away the white gloves of a duel to the death. I won't say these words to her face. Alright, although she can't be considered a beauty, but looking at the angry stares from the others, I accidentally angered the crowd again. I better tuck my tail between my legs and work. Just where is that precious jade? There is something fishy about this quest. That count, who has quite a bit of authority, clearly has quite a few experts under him, but he entrusted us, outsiders, to search for his lost family heirloom. This guiding light is obviously necromancy. It is more like searching for souls and corpses. How can it find a treasure? Hehe, looks like I have already seen the truth of the matter. After biting my finger hard as revenge, Harlois jumps onto my shoulder. Sitting higher, she is able to distance herself from the disgusting smell of the filth. I also find it strange. That count gave us a guiding light filled with magic, saying that if we follow it, we will find the precious jade. However, from what I can sense, it is obviously necromancy magic, flesh and blood guidance. It is a necromancy magic that uses flesh and blood samples to track down the owner of the flesh and their lost limbs. It is one thing for a human count to have necromancers under him, but could it be that the precious jade we are looking for is a part of someone's body? Alright, it's right in front. After everyone cleaned up the battlefield, I carried the guiding light and walked over. Finally, I stopped in front of a huge pot left behind by the rat men. Looking at how the guiding light is flashing more and more urgently, the precious jade we are looking for should be in this pot. Thus, I casually picked up a long ladle and scooped up a few handfuls. Looking at the human fingers and ears that I scooped up the first few times, this really is the ratman's mixed soup. But right after, I scooped up my target, the precious jade. So the precious jade is an egg. Alright, The ferocious dog has already made a straightforward explanation. In front of us is a part of a male organ, commonly known as an egg. It has already been cooked, and its appearance. Alright, I am already so disgusted that I can't even describe it. There is only one truth. That unlucky count must have been casually playing around outside, and then his first wife ruthlessly stabbed him and threw him into the sores. How vicious. I am starting to feel like meeting that countess. Inexplicably, listening to Harloise's malicious explanation and her malicious gaze, I felt a chill run down my spine. No, that isn't a knife wound, but a compression injury. Looking at the wound, there shouldn't be a perpetrator in this case. It should just be that when that fat count went to the toilet, he accidentally placed his *** in between the toilet seat and the toilet bowl, and then accidentally sat down. A crisp cracking sound rang out. It fell into the sores. There is a real case on the internet. Look, that count is too fat, so it's hard for him to move. The edge of the metal toilet seat is also quite sharp, so the moment it is pressed down, it will split open with a pa-G sound. Should I say that as expected of a professional judge? At the end of her explanation, Collos even claps her hands together and makes a squeezing motion, producing a catcher, pa-G sound. But why are you guys covering your lower body? Is there something wrong with my reasoning? No, everyone just felt that they pulled their *** and it hurts a little. Alright, there was no doubt that the action of these men covering their nether regions was an instinct that men could empathize with. However, this result that left one speechless had already proved that today was destined to be a farce that would make one physically and mentally exhausted. Why can't I meet some normal people? It's fine if the team is unreliable, but even the client is unreliable. I ask the heavens speechlessly, but there is no answer. Should we bring this back? It's disgusting. Momo doesn't want to touch it. He probably wants a priest to help it regenerate, otherwise he wouldn't have spent money to hire us. Who wants to take it? Obviously, no one wants to touch this thing. Just as we are trying to push it away, a hong-long sound resounds and the entire underground tunnel shakes. The main army of the rat men is here. They have always been a life form with a strong desire for vengeance. Grim takes a step forward silently, but there is a rare pride in his tone. The trap that he set up by himself has already worked. However, cold sweat breaks out on my head. Judging from the rocks that fall from the ceiling, this fellow seems to have used quite a bit of explosives. Grim, you can't be using the standards of the underground world to bury explosives, right? This is a man-made underground tunnel, so it isn't as sturdy as the walls of the underground world. Just how many did you bury? Alright, there's no need to ask anymore. Grim's action of turning around and running shows what is going to happen next. Boom. Boom. A series of explosions and the collapse of the entire underground tunnel proves that not only did he bury explosives, he buried a lot of them. Damn it. Can't you guys be a little more normal? As I try my best to run for my life, I think about Collos, who was calmly explaining my deductions. Thinking about this explosive maniac prince, I once again regret coming up with the name Absolute Gentleman Alliance. Collos, whose gender is Collos, Prince Grim, who mysteriously plays with explosives despite not being able to see his face, Beifong, UN, there's no need to add a prefix at all, the name Beifong is the best description of a pervert. Kageo, who is getting closer and closer with Beifong, although he seems normal for the time being on good terms with Beifong is probably the biggest problem in itself, a Shota-like fierce dog, a dark elf who pursues the path of holy light and the path of law, a certain two gays, two people. We aren't gays. We only love Collos. There really isn't a single normal person here. I have decided, if I don't die this time, I will find two normal teammates when I go out. You forgot to count yourself in, crazy old monster. UN, thanks for the reminder, you old hag pretending to be young. I told you not to call me that. I'll bite you, I'll really bite you. You've already bitten me, you bastard. You're not allowed to add freezing air to me. Apologize. Definitely not. Then watch my move. You know how to add freezing air to slow me down, but I don't. Watch my move. When everyone escaped from the saw, they were shocked to find that not far from the entrance of the saw, a human and a cat were engaged in an intense brawl while moving forward at the speed of a tortoise. At the same time, They were dragging each other down and the entire saw was already shaking, as though it could collapse at any moment. Roland. Stop teasing the cat at this time. I'm not teasing the cat. We're fighting. All right. Before anyone had the time to be surprised that the little black cat could actually speak, the saw finally collapsed. Even as the rocks fell, everyone could still hear the quarrel between the two. It's all because of you, you old hag. You won't have any milk to drink tomorrow. Mph, you'll have to be able to watch until tomorrow. To be able to drag you down with me, my life is worth it. Even if I fall into hell, I'll still wake up smiling. Boom. When countless rocks fell, everything in front of them was completely ruined. Everyone was shocked. What kind of person was this, actually willing to give up his life for a fight with a cat? Oh, I almost died. Don't worry, a scourge can live for 1,000 years. With your ability to cause trouble, even if it's the end of the world, you won't die. Watch my meow god's claw. Alright, it was too early to say that. A human head popped out from the ruins. At this time, he, who was stuck, was still using his teeth to fight with his cat, fighting while mocking each other. However, it was obvious that he, who was now stuck, could not beat the cat. Seeing that his face was full of scratches, he actually began to surrender to the cat without hesitation. Tomorrow, 3 servings of milk. Milk bath. I want the highest grade. Meow wants a vat. Deal. Alright, looking at the man and cat who quickly came to an agreement, let's not talk about the expressions on the others' faces when they dug out their team leader. They were also thinking about whether they should leave the party as soon as possible before this living treasure dragged them to death. But very quickly, they unexpectedly realized that team leader Roland was still holding that disgusting ladle in his hands. You can't be thinking of going to claim the reward, right? It was cooked once and then crushed once. It's all burnt, it's better to throw it away. Yeah, even a gold rank priest might not be able to save him if we send such a thing over. Be careful of that count's embarrassment turning into rage. I shook my head. I already understood why the count would entrust a foreign mercenary group to me. Diana and Kolos, follow me to hand in the mission. This fellow's underlings even entrusted us with this mission. It's obvious that he intends to use us and then kill us to silence us. Just nice, when he turns hostile, we can take him down and use this toy to threaten him. Then, we can smoothly control the count and take over the count's personal connections. You can say whatever you want, but if you touch me with this ladle, I'll fight you to the death. Faced with Harloise's complaints, I didn't retort. At this moment, I was shocked by the system notification in front of me. Congratulations, host, for successfully activating the epic quest, Revival of the Miss. A few minutes ago, Kelly and Renee were shocked by a thick envelope that they had just opened. The blueprint for the full equipment set of the Aurora Knight. The blueprint for the Avalanche Defender set of the Royal Heavy Infantry Regiment. The training method for the Asmu Hound Tamers. Here and there were more than 30 types of powerful troops, job training methods and equipment blueprints that had been lost in history. These were the pride of the mist bloodline of the warlike country in the past. However, it was a pity that they were destroyed along with the capital city during the Battle of Defender. Could this be a legacy of the past? Was it preserved by a Donglan who escaped to the Ottoman Empire? No, these are all top secrets. The number of people who knew about it back then definitely didn't exceed a single digit. Also, look at the blueprint for this armor. We have this one, but this one is slightly different. Inconceivable. With this modification, its defensive capabilities have increased by at least 20%. To think that it was an improved version, who would be able to improve such a perfect design even further? The handwriting on the blueprint is still wet. It should have been written not too long ago. A small gift, please accept it. I will be paying you a visit soon. Roland. Who is Roland? No matter who he is, the Donglan Principality is safe. As long as we bring these back, give us another 10 years, and we will rise up once more, becoming the new powerful country in the north. Not mentioning the 2 overjoyed ladies. At the same time, I was having a headache over this epic tier quest that had suddenly been activated. I really didn't expect that a moment of excitement would actually bring me such a huge problem. Ding. Congratulations, host, for successfully activating the epic quest, Revival of the Mist. Quest requirement: resolve the crisis of the Donglan Principality being annexed and subjugated, allowing the country of Winter Wolves to return once more in front of the true king of Winter Wolves. Dasos is nothing. Quest reward: the Roland Sacred Sword that has been upgraded to a god equipment. Clues to the god equipment Holy Crown of Thorns. I know that you really want to find this god equipment that protects the country. Punishment for quest failure: turn into a sissy. I'm serious, very serious. If I can't even protect the country this time, I might as well become a sissy. What a headache. Where did that brat Cavendish lose the Holy Crown of Thorns? He didn't even tell me, and even made me go look for it. Although I was complaining, it was likely that the smile on my face couldn't be hidden from anyone. This time, I definitely won't fail. Chapter 83. Name. Age. Occupation. What are you good at? What goals do you have? Aaron, 16, Iron Rank Warrior. My swordsmanship is pretty good. I want to earn money and become a hero that saves the world. Looking at the young man who is smiling foolishly in front of me, I nod my head. This simple black-faced young man reminds me of the Adam of the past. Next. A 16-year-old Iron Rank, what's the point of training? Can you advance to Gold Rank in 3 years? This isn't a nursery, you should find a newbie party to grind together. Kavin, 30+, Silver Rank Shaman Priest. My goal is to earn enough money to buy the Flame Dragon Circus. Dishu, 40+, I am his elder brother, a proud warrior. My goal is to be a good elder brother. I am the elder brother. Dear, you idiot who can't even count properly. We were born together, why are you 10 years older than me? Alright, this is a rare ogre shaman. It is said that he used to be the pillar of a circus. After the circus collapsed, he came out as a mercenary to make a living. He even intends to earn enough money to start a new circus. I am the elder brother. I am the elder brother. Don't think that I am afraid of you just because you know how to play some glowing tricks. I have strength. Alright, let's play rock paper scissors, whoever wins is the elder brother. Alright, 1, 2, 3, ha, rock. I am paper, I win, I am the elder brother. Kavin, you are too slow, it doesn't count. Again, otherwise I will beat you up. Who's afraid of you? Today I will let you know the might of an elder brother. You idiot who can't even count to 9. But now, this rare twin-headed ogre Kavin and Dishu are actually fighting over the elder brother. As they fight, they are even crying out in pain. I can't tell if it is the pain of hitting someone or the pain of being hit. I nod my head silently. This twin-headed ogre is indeed quite strong. He is a natural dual cultivator of magic and martial arts. His overall fighting prowess has definitely reached the level of a gold rank human, which is indeed rare. More importantly, the newbie just now is different. Next. However, what I lacked right now wasn't combat strength, but normal people. There were already enough perverts and weirdos in my team. If I added in someone who was born to fight left and right, wouldn't that be a joke? That day, after realizing that the gentleman group lacked morals and common sense, I decided to recruit 2 normal people after considering the need to raise their moral values. Of course, another reason is that in this human country, there are too many different races in the gentleman group. If we were to use non-humans to communicate with our clients, it would inevitably cause others to overthink it. Thus, in order to put on a facade, I intend to recruit a few human mercenaries. It would be even better if they are familiar with the local tyrants of this city. Even if they couldn't help, they could still act as a cover. Now that a group of aliens were moving together, it would be too eye-catching. A few aliens among a group of human mercenaries would be much better. There's no time to lose, I decided to act on it. Thus, early in the morning, I set up a stall at the entrance of the Mercenary Association to recruit people. With the friendly sponsorship of the Count with broken eggs, the salary offered is rather impressive. However, it is a pity that my identity as a foreigner and my untraceable background, coupled with the tense atmosphere of the enthronement ceremony, caused the veteran mercenaries to remain on the sidelines. Those who came to apply for the job are either completely useless newbies or those super weirdos that other groups wouldn't accept. Glancing at Kavan and Dishu who are still fighting left and right, I shake my head helplessly. Standing up, I pack up my stall and leave. Looks like I wasted an entire morning for nothing. However, when I pass by the bounty column, I stop. A-rank bounty mission: find the culprit behind the destruction of the saws in the northwest corner of the Pearl District. Regardless of life or death, the reward is 200,000 gold coins. This is a huge sum of money. An A-rank bounty is enough to raise my unranked mercenary group by a few levels. This 200,000 gold coins is enough to buy a luxurious mansion in the Pearl District where every inch of land is worth its weight in gold. Looks like any mysterious destruction before the enthronement ceremony will affect the nerves of the Ottoman officials. I hesitated for a moment. Considering that I have earned a huge sum recently, I don't lack money. Even though it would feel great to send that explosive maniac who is getting more and more dangerous out in exchange for the reward, it would still affect me in the end. Helpless, I regretfully let go of this opportunity to completely eliminate a troublesome person. Yesterday, when I was communicating with the Count with broken eggs, as expected, he was looking for unfamiliar faces to work for him, intending to silence us. When he saw that there were only 3 of us and 2 females, he decided to reveal his true intentions. Diana used a great sundering evil slash to cut down a dozen of them. Kolos destroyed the roof and the rest of the building. Then, I took out the devil's contract. That fat Count was quite knowledgeable. When he saw how the Holy Knight skillfully used the devil's language to change the evil contract, his jaw dropped in shock. It was as though he had seen an angel and a devil dancing together. What happened after that was even simpler. After signing the contract, looking at how he was scared stiff, I thought that it would be better for us to go all out. It wouldn't be good for either of us to perish together, so I didn't ask for too much. I just extorted a huge sum of money and a luxurious mansion to use as a temporary base. Then, I got him to act as my informant and provide him with intelligence. Of course, the devil's contract increases the price bit by bit, luring people to take the bait bit by bit. If I were to play too big at the start, wouldn't it scare away the fat sheep? My old mansion was also in the Pearl District. I was quite satisfied with it. It wasn't right to stay in a hotel all the time. Even though the mansion was a little old, the decorations and garden were of high quality. Currently, the members of the mercenary group were cleaning up the temporary base. As the leader of the humans, I took the opportunity to recruit people. If it was just me, it wouldn't be so eye-catching. Without those fellows who lacked moral integrity dragging me down, I should be able to recruit normal people. It definitely wasn't to avoid the responsibility of cleaning up. Finding an excuse to slack off or whatnot, is this something that a righteous holy knight like me would do? Looks like without a reputation, I won't be able to recruit any decent people. Why don't I try the legendary compulsory course for all transmigrators and try to dig out those future heroes who aren't achieving their ambitions? If the plot time is up, they should have already been born. Sigh, when I got that guide, I thought that I would be able to recruit quite a number of super underlings. I didn't expect that their ancestors were still in the state of fertilized eggs. At that moment, I was really embarrassed. This should be even more depressing than the time when I finally managed to create glass, only to find out that it had already been created. I don't have any qualms about poaching the people of the Ottoman Empire. Imagining how cool it would be to walk out with a bunch of epic heroes following behind me, I couldn't help but let my imagination run wild. I remember that Swift Sword and Teacher of Magic Engineering are both in the Ottoman capital. Why don't I look for them tomorrow? Let's first look for that Count with broken eggs to get some intelligence. Now that the recruitment mission is done, where should I waste my time? Hey, this big brother. You still haven't told me that you aren't going to hire us. We want money to revive the Burning Fire Circus. We are very obedient. Just as I stared at the wanted poster in a daze, even starting to think about how long it would take for the cleaning to be completed and where should I go to waste my time, suddenly, my vision darkened. Then, 2 ugly faces suddenly appeared in front of me and a foul stench sprayed onto my face. Ghosts. Alright, what was even faster than my exclamation was my physical instincts. Before I could react, my fist had already punched out. That touch, it felt as though I had hit something solid. He hit me. He actually really hit me. Ha, to actually dare to provoke this foolish ogre who doesn't differentiate between friend and foe. There's going to be a good show to watch. If he is killed, the compensation will be 3-1. If he is severely injured, the compensation will be 110. Pitiful fire dragon circus. They were already heavily in debt due to their poor management. Now, their former member has injured someone. This time, no one can save them. From the exclamations of the bystanders, just as I expected, Kavan and Dishu's strength isn't too bad in my eyes. In the eyes of normal mercenaries, they are extremely frightening. However, no one dares to use them. The reason is because this ogre is easily provoked into a berserk state. Once they enter a battle, it is easy for them to not differentiate between friend and foe. I'm sorry, who told you to suddenly appear? It was an accident. I smile sheepishly and retract my hand from Kavan and Dishu's stomach. However, there are already kind-hearted people who exclaim in shock. Brat, hurry up and run. How can an ogre be reasonable? Half a month ago, he severely injured a northern berserker. Hurry up and run. You actually dare to hit Kavan. The 4 eyes of the 3-meter-tall twin-headed ogre start to turn bloodshot. Then, the whites of his eyes start to show and saliva drips from his mouth. The rest of his words can no longer be said. This is a complete berserk state. Everyone, charge together, otherwise, we will all die here. Alright, looking at the scene in front of us, there is already an old mercenary leading the charge with a furious roar. Complete berserk is the ultimate killing move, racial talent, of beastmen, berserkers, and ogres. They will give up all rationality and use their life force in exchange for the most fearsome power. Perhaps, if they don't receive treatment in time, they will basically die from exhaustion. However, before it ends, they are definitely a killing machine that doesn't fear death. Kavan and Dishu's overall fighting strength is already at gold rank. After complete berserk, they would at least be at the legend rank. The old mercenary's judgment is correct. If they don't kill him in time, I'm afraid that no one here will survive. However, in the next second, the 4 eyes of the drooling ogre completely turn white. Then, his head suddenly tilts and he falls to the ground. His humongous body falls to the ground, raising a cloud of dust. How is this possible? It wasn't complete berserk, but he was knocked down. He was punched by that young man. The face of the strongest old mercenary is filled with shock. He couldn't believe it. He had partnered with Kavan and Dishu before, so he knows how thick the skin and flesh of this shaman and berserker ogre is. He even saw the berserk ogre Kavan and Dishu tear apart a war elephant. Yet, he was knocked down by a human with a single punch. After the dust settles, the young man who was smiling cheerfully has long disappeared. At the same time, I, who accidentally used my full strength in that punch, had already made use of the chaos to retreat. The basic strength of a normal ogre is 16 points, and Kavan and Dishu, who are warriors, have at least 18 points. Compared to a human with 10 points, it is indeed terrifying, but compared to a human with 20 points, which exceeds the limits of mortals, there is a qualitative difference. Furthermore, I accidentally used the strength exertion technique that I recently practiced, which is the main reason why I was knocked down by that punch. As for why I wanted to escape, darn it, I just wanted to make a name for myself, but this kind of appearance is too unsightly. If I don't escape now, I won't be able to escape the title of Ogre Knight or something. I still have some understanding of the profession of mercenaries. For veterans, nicknames tend to spread even further than their real names. Furthermore, these nicknames are usually related to the first time they become famous, so it is hard to change it. If I have a good title like Giant Dragon Slayer or something like that, it would be good. However, if I were to have a title like Kobold Professional Killer, Goblin Destroyer, Wild Dog Banisher and so on, I wouldn't be able to raise my head for the rest of my life. As for the strange nicknames like Holy Knight with greater magic power than an ogre and Ogre Holy Knight, based on my luck, it is definitely possible for me to obtain them. Thus, it is better for me to run as far as I can. Of course, before I leave, I completed my goal. The wanted poster in my bosom is just nice to pass the time before the big cleaning ends. B rank wanted poster, Bloodhand Brotherhood, wanted for this bunch of darned pickpockets and killers, dead or alive. An ordinary member is 100 gold coins, at least 1,000 gold coins for a high-ranking member, and 50,000 gold coins for the bandit leader, Bloodhand Jim. If it is completed before the enthronement ceremony, the reward will be doubled. Although this bounty is much lesser than the A-rank bounty just now, I am in dire need of intelligence and a target to practice on. In terms of intelligence gathering, who can compare to the Thief Guild, who is also an intelligence peddler? Very quickly, I got some basic information about the Bloodhand Brotherhood from the Count with Broken Eggs. They are a lower middle-class thief guild with less than 200 members. They just made a big deal to steal the tributes of a certain country to His Majesty. Now, they are on the wanted list and it is said that their nest is in the harbor area. 200 people, huh? Let's end it before dinner. If I bring the intelligence back, no one will say that I am slacking off. Roland missed, Strength 20, Agility 19, Stamina 20, Intelligence 29, Will 19, Charm 19. Talent, War Angel Form, Sinful Demon God Form, Order Sword, Titan Body, LV22 Order Knight LV22 Chaos Witch King. In fact, from the moment I was resurrected, I had been thinking about what kind of cultivation path I should take while I was pleasantly surprised by my high starting point. Putting aside ice magic and necromancy magic, as a veteran Holy Knight, I am confident in my close combat skills. However, with this balanced and powerful physical body, if I were to walk the path of a heavy-armored two-handed swordsman, then my 19 points of agility would be wasted. If I were to walk the path of a light-armored agility warrior, then it would be a waste of 20 points of strength that surpasses mortals. What surprised me the most is that the basic job, Order Knight, actually doesn't have a main attribute. Raising any attribute can raise one's overall fighting prowess. Thus, I hesitated. Could it be that I should walk the path of dual blades? Or should I learn from the barbarians and wield a heavy weapon in each hand? That doesn't mean that I have to start all over again. Changing my fighting style isn't an easy task. However, a small accident made me make up my mind. Frozen Air. This extremely sinister additional ability can be attached to the blade, causing the opponent to unknowingly fall into a desperate situation during a fight. Initially, I thought that using the dazzling holy light on the sword to conceal the frozen air would be more discreet and lethal. However, reality always falls short of expectations. I tried many times, but regardless of whether it is holy light or the power of law, as long as they come into contact with the frozen air, one of them would definitely melt. If it isn't for their innate conflicting natures, I wouldn't be able to fuse them together. Not using holy light to focus on the frozen air. Is a holy knight who doesn't use holy light still a holy knight? He is obviously a pure warrior, a novice second-rate warrior who is unable to focus on his swordsmanship. Of course, I turned my attention to the dual blades. One of them is infused with holy light while the other is infused with frozen air. In theory, if I were to use two unique powers to attack, it would definitely make the opponent feel like crying. Furthermore, this way, not only would I be able to bring out the advantage of my extremely high basic attributes, this kind of battle strategy of using two attributes at the same time is also very suitable for me, who has many different attributes. I can choose the attribute of the two swords according to the opponent. However, when I suggested this plan, the knight, including Diana, didn't think that I was courting death. Dual wielding isn't as simple as using two swords at the same time. It is completely different from wielding a sword with both hands. The cycle between attack and defense is extremely important. When the left sword is used, even if the right sword isn't used to attack, it still has to move. Otherwise, the balance of the body will be broken. Multitasking is the norm. At the same time, it has a high requirement for balance and agility. It is basically the specialty of elf rangers. You are a human. This is what Diana wanted to say but stopped herself. She was just short of saying two-handed swordsman is the specialty of elf rangers. You won't be able to learn it. Dual-handed swords. Or two-handed swords. Haha, are you a 3-meter tall ogre or a 2.5-meter tall Highland barbarian? To think that you can come up with such a ridiculous idea. If you are able to do it, tonight, I will. Alright, looking at the scene before her, Momo swallowed the rest of her words. Back then, I was wielding a two-handed sword in each of my hands. At the start, I was still very unfamiliar with it. However, as I swung it around, I got used to it. Following which, it was as though I was a veteran who had been practicing for decades. I don't believe it. It must be a feint. Come, let's spar. Alright, Momo personally stepped onto the stage. Amidst everyone's astonishment, after I got past the initial fluster, I found my own rhythm in the battle. I wielded the two heavy swords as nimbly as my own limbs. The coordination between the two swords brought about a brisk rhythm, playing a high-speed waltz that resembled the flowing water of a clear spring. Momo, who was lacking in strength to begin with, only lasted for less than 30 seconds before her hands went numb. This is a miracle. The gaze of the legend-rank Holy Knight Diana when she looks at me is filled with disbelief. Then, she smiles and nods her head, as though this is how it should be. In reality, there is no doubt that I cheated. Dexterous hands. Allow your left hand to be as nimble as your right. Learning requirement, Agility 15+ system evaluation. There is really no difference between the left and right hand. Please do not use this skill for senseless things. Back when I was roaming around the kingdom of the elves, I trained my dexterous hands out of boredom, which resulted in this option appearing in the grayed out skill window. However, as this is a core job skill of a dual-wielding ranger, even though my basic stats are up to the mark, I still paid 3 times the skill points. Giant Soldier Wield. With your astonishing strength, you are able to wield a two-handed weapon like a one-handed sword. However, if you are not proficient in using one hand, your accuracy and damage will be greatly reduced. Learning requirement, Strength 18+ system evaluation. Although Giant Soldier Wield is a common talent for close combat, 18 points of strength is only enough to learn it. If you want to wield it well, you will need at least 20 points of strength. If you aren't a giant, only a legend rank warrior would be able to gather enough points. However, by then, your fighting style would have already been set. Why would you switch to dual-wielding weapons? Thus, this is also known as the most useless skill. Along with the investment of 4 skill points, countless battle techniques and experiences flowed into my mind and were memorized by my body. Only then did I manage to save a large amount of training time. Under the incredulous gazes of the crowd, I managed to grasp the basic techniques of wielding a two-handed sword. Of course, this was only the beginning. It only provided me with the possibility of trying out this fighting style. However, if I wanted to become a grandmaster in wielding a two-handed sword like I did in the past, I would still need to spend countless hours grinding and actual combat training. The opponent in front of me just happens to be a suitable sparring partner for me. Ha! The two-handed sword in my right glows with a golden light, illuminating the pitch-black basement. In the next instant, the thief hiding in the shadows is sent flying. It's a slap, not a chop. Two-handed heavy swords are a classic example of using strength to subdue others. If I can swing it with all my strength, I can split Mount Hua. Naturally, I can also use its weight and massive body to bully others by slapping, smashing, and chopping. However, looking at the opponent who was sent flying and fell into a wooden chest, there isn't any difference between a slap and a chop to a weak thief. It's a pity. Consider yourself unlucky. Shaking my head, I continue walking forward. The moment I step into the next room, an explosion sounds and smoke rises. The thieves and assassins in front and behind me kill their way out from the booby traps. Alright, looking at the lush green dagger, if I were to go easy on them, it would be equivalent to courting death. Thus, going all out, it becomes a one-sided battle. From the start of the battle, I finally understand why the silver rank Momo was defeated so easily. It is just that I changed to a fighting style that brings out the advantage of my basic stats to its fullest, causing my fighting prowess to increase exponentially. It is still the swift, accurate, and ruthless sword of the king. It doesn't take any side paths or play any tricks. Every strike is faster and heavier than the one before it, using strength to subdue others and speed to subdue others. But for agility-based assassins, it would be fatal. The attack range of a two-handed sword is huge to begin with. Furthermore, the basement is rather narrow. The moment two two-handed swords start dancing, the the space for dodging becomes even smaller. After the agility that the assassins are so proud of is suppressed, the one who makes the first move is basically me. At the same time, they have to withstand at least one round of my heavy sword in close combat. The heavy sword that I just barely managed to block the radiating holy light makes my feet wobble. The sword in my left hand is like a venomous snake. It doesn't strike, but as long as it strikes, it is aimed at the vitals, either slashing at the waist or stabbing at the throat. The strongest silver rank shadow assassin was only able to block 3 strikes. Before the effects of the freezing air could even take effect, he was sliced into 2 by the sword in my right hand. In just a short 10 seconds, the thieves lost 7 to 8 of their comrades. When the strongest leader died meaninglessly in battle, the thieves finally confirmed that the opponent in front of them is an undefeatable one. Then, without any hesitation, they scattered in all directions. I didn't chase after them because the Queen of Banshees is already grumbling in my ears. If you don't hurry up, that fellow is going to run away. My clone is going to be taken away too. It isn't easy for me to split a clone right now. Don't waste it. She does have a reason to grumble. It is all thanks to her that we were able to find her all the way here. How did we find the Hidden Thief Guild? I only disguised myself as a fat sheep and allowed the pickpockets of the Bloodhound Brotherhood to steal my wallet. There is a very valuable tear gem in it. Then, just like what the intelligence said, the Bloodhound Brotherhood has a tight control over their lower ranks. Very quickly, even though there is some strange mucus around the gem, the tear gem is transferred to the hands of the higher-ups of the Bloodhound Brotherhood. Then, following the guidance of the Clone of Greed, I followed it all the way here. Harloise's grumbling is still ringing in my ears. If I don't hurry up, I would have done this for nothing. If the head of the bandits runs away, the rewards and tributes would be gone. Naturally, the historical intelligence of the Thief Guild would be gone as well. Since I am already at the location but I can't see the path, there must be a secret passage in this basement. Thus, I hastened my search. But very quickly, I realized that I didn't add any points into search and mechanisms. Even though I can feel that the Clone of Greed is below, I can't find the mechanism no matter how hard I try. Forget it, technology isn't my cup of tea after all. I am still used to smashing the door with violence. Sword of Order, open a hole for me. I have long intended to find a chance to test out this talent skill. But before I could test out the damage it causes, a familiar voice rings in my ears. Ding. In your absence, you have become a hot topic among the mercenaries. Congratulations to host for obtaining your first honorary title after rebirth. It matches well with your style of smashing the door. Alright, I didn't lose my appetite. That title is very impressive, 1 punch to subdue a demon. Congratulations, it isn't the Ogre Knight that you have been worrying about. What? This title sounds like warrior monks. Knocking down an ogre with a single punch and you still expect to become a holy knight? Dual swords. Everyone is treating you as a warrior monks disguised as a holy knight. Lord 1 punch to subdue a demon. Chapter 84. Beifeng Benevolent Beast King Hospital. We will provide you and your family with warm service at the lowest price and enjoy the services of royalty. It's decided then. Under the setting sun, I heard such an explosive topic the moment I walked into the renovated old mansion. I thought that I had walked into the wrong door. Let the world know of my existence. Let the future generations know of my existence. Even if I can't leave my name in the annals of history, I will still leave a stink for 10,000 years. Please trust us wholeheartedly. Please hand over your beloved pet to us. Specialized in infertility, a century-old shop, Beifeng Benevolent Beast Hospital, worthy of your trust. That is the slogan of 4 flags, blinding a dog's eyes. Beifeng is currently arguing with someone while his close brother, Kazio, is waving the flag and shouting for him. However, the slogan on the flag on his body is completely unbearable. I am thinking, if old Miniel were to see his grandson in such a state, should he be happy that he doesn't have to worry about internal strife in the tribe, or should he be so angry that he would go all out against me? Big brother Beifeng is so warm and amiable, why do you all hate him? Could it be that racial prejudice is really so stubborn? Looking at the passionate roar, tears welling up in his eyes due to his big brother's incomprehension. I feel that old Miniel would probably hack me to death. If one isn't enough, he might even drag the entire tribe along with him. On the other side, heaven's punishment, Beifeng. Gay die. Alright, it is fine if other people wave this flag. However, you bastards who followed me here for Kolos, do you have the right to wave the flag at the back? The law is supreme, the law court and church is supreme. This flag is stuck on Kolos's gigantic staff. The rampaging lightning makes one unhesitatingly believe in her determination to uphold her beliefs. The minority obeys the majority. I said that it is the law court. If you don't like it, come and fight me. This is Momo's. It is a perfect match for her ferocious appearance. Alright, the flags of both sides are equally unbearable. The ones leading the other side are Kolos and Momo. There are also two small fries waving the flag and shouting with all their might. Very quickly, while I was secretly rejoicing that I managed to escape the cleaning, I understood what happened. As usual, it was the trouble I caused. Before I left, I said casually, "It's such a big house. It's such a waste. Our bedrooms are on the second and third floors. Why don't we do something on the first floor? With so many people coming and going, we can at least use it as a cover." Alright, after the group of idlers finished cleaning, they really began to discuss how to use the space on the first floor and the garden. But as usual, the normal discussion only lasted for 5 minutes, and the rest became a fight to fulfill their selfish desires. Let's just set up a veterinary hospital. We have Big Brother Beifeng, an old Chinese doctor, and so many beautiful nurses. We'll definitely make a fortune. Perhaps it was a collection from Beifeng's time as a veterinarian. Kageo was currently showing off the nurse uniform in his hands. If that miniskirt and black lace top were to be worn by an elf, it would definitely be extremely alluring. Not to mention, judging from the gaze that was constantly shifting between Kolos and the nurse uniform, the two of them were truly shaken. Bastard, if people find out that I worked in Beifeng's hospital, I really don't need to get married anymore. However, Momo was clearly unmoved. She was currently working hard for her future. Mph, fierce woman, do you think that you can get married now? Do you think that no one knows about you peeping on Roland while he was sleeping? Female pervert. Aha, at least I'm stronger than you. How can it be normal for me to be together with Beifeng every day? You want me to be a nurse? Sure, as long as you wear it as well. You. How can you say that? We are just brothers. Do you think that I, gold-ranked beau, am afraid of you? Fine, if I wear it, you have to agree with Big Brother Beifeng's plan. I really don't know what you all are thinking. Why must you stop such a good thing like setting up a veterinary hospital? After saying his piece, Kageo really started to take off his armor to study how to wear the nurse uniform. The young lad was handsome and had a masculine aura to him. His firm muscles weren't exaggerated, but he gave off a classical sense of beauty as though he was a sculpture. However, if he were to wear the nurse uniform, I should go and vomit first. Alright, if I don't stop him, I might be able to save my dinner today, but my corium dog eyes would be blinded. But fortunately, someone was a step ahead to stop him. Brother, it is good that you have such intentions, but don't reprimand them too much. History tells us that the pioneers are always alone, while the numb masses will eventually wake up one day. We just have to do our best to convey our true intentions and wait quietly. As for me, Beifeng, who was pressing his palms together, smiled. His smile was as light as the clouds and wind, as though he was a Buddha. The halo of a saint could be faintly seen behind him. The world slandered me, bullied me, humiliated me, laughed at me, belittled me, despised me, hated me, lied to me. How can I deal with it? Just bear with it, let it be, avoid it, bear with it, respect it, ignore it. After a few more years, look at it. What can I do about it? What can I do about all the hostility? I love this world so much. Ah. The final ah was a scream of agony. I want you to be deep, I want you to be deep. Do you think that we can't tell that the fake holy light is your hunter's flash grenade, and you still dare to copy the Eastern Buddhist scriptures? Heal your head, this is obviously your bad taste. You still dare to talk about love, must love make one depressed? It is you, the warrior of love, who will beat it up. Broken shoe slash, sundering slash, condemnation strike, taste my demon subduing fist. Alright, I couldn't help but make a move myself. Looking at the despicable smile on Beifeng's face, his sanctimonious face full of nonsense, I really can't vent my anger if I don't beat him up. After the farce, I swept my eyes across the hall that was just cleaned up, only to be messed up again by the banners and slogans. I began to preach. Look at how old you are, can't you all be a little more steady? Look at Diana, such a good girl, why isn't she fighting for it? Mph, big sis doesn't know which one to fight for. Alright, from the hands behind Diana's back, whose face turned red from embarrassment, I saw 2 banners. I suggest that the first floor be built as a courtroom. The Church of the Goddess of Moonlight, listen to the will of the true God. As though embarrassed from being stared at by me, the grey elf muttered something softly. When I got closer, I realized, the Church of Holy Light is the highest. Alright, this silly girl who was slow by half a beat finally made up her mind. As she said that, she looked at me expectantly, as though hoping that I, as a holy knight, would agree to her suggestion. I can understand that you have been following the path of holy light for a few hundred years. Now that you are under the command of the God of Law, you are still a grey elf who follows the path of redemption of the Goddess of Moonlight. However, is it really possible to worship 3 true gods at the same time? Even if the Order gods only restrict the number of followers and don't prohibit multiple beliefs, as a clergyman, can't you have some integrity? Aren't you afraid of being struck to death by a bolt of lightning just because you have a foot in 3 boats? However, looking at how the valiant and heroic legend knight became so timid and worried when she talked about her beliefs, I knew that it was useless to say anything more. It doesn't matter what outsiders say about these matters, as long as she makes up her mind herself. I should have known that there wouldn't be any normal people in the Gentleman Alliance. Even if they look normal on the outside, there would still be problems on the inside. Even if they were normal in the beginning, they would still become a pervert after staying for a long time. I look at Kezio with sympathy. Probably, the only one who isn't here, Grim, is slightly better. Wait, that's not right. We are still missing one. Where's Grim? There is obviously one person missing, so how can I be at ease? Grim is obviously the most dangerous one here. He disappeared from the moment we started chatting. Probably. Catcher. Boom. Following the sounds of explosions and the destruction of the walls, thick smoke rises. I stare at the sky speechlessly and make up my mind to find a normal person tomorrow. Probably he. You don't have to say any more, I understand. Next time, remember to put a chain on him and watch over him. Just tell him what I said. Alright, I don't have to say any more. I can already understand the train of thought of that weird prince. Cleaning the house equals preparation of the fortress equals activation of the security equipment equals setting up many traps and bombs equals safety first equals being able to sleep peacefully at night. Safety first. You don't have to thank me too much. The next moment, that prince pops out from a corner and raises a thumbs up proudly. Although I can't see his face under the helmet, I can feel that he is smiling gleefully under the helmet. I will be back. I will be back. For some reason, this ice-cold metal giant's thumbs-up gesture reminds me of the famous lines of the robot from another world. I am a little curious about what Grim looks like under his metal mask. Could it be that he is really a metal magic puppet with an iron core and a steel body? That is why he is so dumb. Sigh, forget it. It isn't worth getting angry with him. It isn't the first time anyway. Some people are destined to be stubborn for their entire lives. The unrepentant Grim is a perfect example. There is no point in getting angry with him. Looking at the billowing black smoke outside the window, I think about how my blood pressure is getting higher and higher at such a young age. Even though I am so angry that the veins on my face are bulging, I still clutch my chest and silently count to myself. I do my best to stabilize my emotions and blood pressure that are about to go berserk. Think on the bright side. So what if it exploded? If the old doesn't go, the new won't come. It is just the right time to set up a new defense system. Wait, what did he explode? We just moved here and we don't have any visitors. What kind of person could trigger the bomb that was just set up? The F***CK. the dinner, ingredients, and daily necessities that I ordered. The precious magazines that I secretly bought. Grim, you idiot. My limited edition collection, those are super expensive. Rushing out, as expected, it was the dinner and daily necessities that I had ordered at the Merchant Street after receiving the bounty reward. The carriage that delivered the goods had already flown into the sky, and the coachmen and porters were trembling in fear. But now, the expensive goods had all been turned into charred scrap. Arth. I can't take it anymore. Don't run. Let me kill all of you before finding new teammates. This time, I must find some normal people. Alright, looking at the treasures that I went through so much trouble to get from the black market, only to be left with charred scraps, my last thread of rationality snaps. The new treasures were destroyed before I even had the chance to look at them. What is there to consider about my blood pressure? Eat my great sundering demon, father and mother of heavenly state, I finally know how you feel after a hard day's work, seeing that your home has been turned upside down by the rascals. You probably feel the same as me right now. I repent, I'm guilty, but can you not use this group of grown-up brats to torment me? Can you give me a few normal people? If this goes on, I'll die of high blood pressure before I'm even 20 years old. That was what a certain someone wrote in his diary tonight. But reality proved that weirdos will always summon weirdos. Perverts are contagious. Naming it Gentleman Alliance is the biggest mistake of my life. And this is just the beginning. It is an ancient palace complex. There is no paint on the walls, no carpet on the floor, and not even a decorative vase. Yet, it is the residence of the person with the highest authority in the Ottoman Empire. Luxury is for the sake of appearance. Appearance is for outsiders to see. Throw those messy things to the side, don't dazzle my eyes. When the ministers persuaded Dasos to follow the precedent of the previous emperors and build a huge palace when he ascends to the throne, the young emperor threw these words down and ignored everyone's dissuasion. He moved to the abandoned palace of the previous emperor. Women. I'm not interested. If it was someone else's woman, I might be interested. If it's someone else's land, I'm even more interested. The future king of winter wolves never hid his ambition. It is precisely this strong desire and ability to turn his ambition into reality that allowed him to defeat the other 7 sons of the previous emperor and finally ascend to the throne. War. Within 5 years of Dasos ascending to the throne, there will definitely be war. This is the consensus of all diplomats and researchers of the international situation. If it was a small country, such an obvious war maniac wouldn't be able to sit firmly on his throne. However, it is a pity that in the past 300 years, the Orland Empire has accumulated sufficient resources and the neighboring countries aren't strong enough. From the commoners to the domain lords of the various lands, everyone hopes for a chance to reshuffle the cards and improve themselves. Dasos, who ascended to the throne under such circumstances, made the promise of war, thus raising his prestige to a frightening level. Renee and Kelly's guess isn't wrong. Dasos is obviously using strength to convince people. If you are convinced, then kneel down. If you are not convinced, then he will find a reason to beat you until you are convinced. However, there is one thing that they didn't expect. Dasos's ambition is far greater than expected. How can a subordinate country satisfy his greed? Have the arrangements been made? That night princess's guardian knight selection ceremony. Compared to the historical records, the Winter Wolf King could be considered a rare handsome man. He had a high-nose bridge, a rather masculine square face, and long black hair that reached his waist. However, he didn't look like a sissy at all. Perhaps it was because of his sharp eyebrows that were as sharp as the stars, and his eagle-like eyes that always gave off an aggressive look, which made it impossible for people to ignore his existence. At this moment, if the citizens of the Mist Country were to hear his words, they would definitely fight him to the death. It has been prepared. 2 legends, 4 gold-ranked and 16 silver-ranked. Our Ottoman Empire is filled with talented youths. This is giving her a lot of face. It should be considered as letting that country bumpkin princess off the hook. Don't underestimate the Mist bloodline. If it wasn't for the few battles that they caused, destroying so many powerful empires, how could our Ottoman Empire rise to power? A camel that dies of illness is still bigger than a horse. I am very interested in the secrets of their royal family. The legendary Aurora Knight is a rarely seen Tier 4, gold-ranked, soldier of the human race. Even if we were to leave a trace of it behind, it would be able to greatly increase the strength of our royal guards. Yes, from the very start, what the Ottoman Empire wants isn't to be a subordinate country. What they want is to swallow them up. Guardian Knight. In the Asia continent, there is another term for the guardian knight of noble ladies, secret lover. Of course, this is usually the choice of the lady who is unable to marry due to certain reasons. But obviously, this time, Dasos doesn't intend to seek Renee's opinion and goes straight to the point. In this generation, there is only one female in the Mist royal family. If her husband is able to become an Ottoman, allowing the next prince to have half of the Ottoman bloodline, it would be equivalent to swallowing this small country. And if she were to reject being chosen as the guardian knight? Fine, this is an insult to the supreme authority of the Ottoman Empire. It is a prelude to force you to rebel. Reject the alliance. Start a war and be swallowed up. Reject the guardian knight. Start a war and be swallowed up. Accept the alliance and the guardian knight. Be swallowed up directly. Facing the shameless Ottoman Empire, which clearly follows the law of the jungle, there isn't much that the Donglan Principality can do. In this simple palace, on the huge map hanging on the wall, the Donglan Principality and the 4 small countries around it are filled with all kinds of chess pieces. Those are the locations of great strategic importance. The Winter Wolf King, who has just ascended to the throne, has already set his sights on the small countries in the alliance. Among them, the fat meat that he is most satisfied with is the Donglan Principality in the north. As long as he can take it down, he will be invincible in the north and his path to the borders of the beastmen will be smooth. Occupying the central plains and expanding his territory, the Ottoman Empire will usher in a new peak. A stable back, the countless precious minerals in the northern highlands and the huge profits from trading at the borders are the cornerstone of his strategy to dominate the entire continent. Just as the subordinate left, the young Winter Wolf King closes his eyes and goes into deep thought. However, his connection with a certain someone in the shadows has been established. Ka, well done. As expected of Crow's son. Looks like choosing you to ascend to the throne is the best choice. Our cooperation will usher in a new peak. Ha, dirty crows, I don't care why you are still so stubborn about that bloodline. As long as you are able to prove your worth, I won't be extravagant with my generous rewards as an emperor. Then, I shall thank your majesty first. As long as you are able to eradicate the Mist bloodline, we, the Celestial Tower, are willing to pledge our loyalty to you. Please look forward to our performance. Above the royal palace, in the midst of the storm, a pitch-black crow turns into the sky and disappears among the dark clouds. Loyalty? Just a bunch of souls who should have died long ago. Leftovers killed by the Emperor of Eternal Night. How dare you talk about loyalty to me? However, you are indeed a good dog that bites. Isn't that so? Crow. The young Winter Wolf King says to his bed. Beneath it, there is a dungeon where a haggard old man is trapped. Unfilial son. Kill me, I will never tell you the final secret of the Ottoman Empire. You will always be an incomplete emperor. However, based on the design of the dungeon, while the voice from above can travel down, the voice from the dungeon can't reach the surface. The shouts of the old man can only echo helplessly underground. Chapter 85. Alright, since your sister isn't at home, I'll pay you a visit next time. Please accept this small gift, it's just to show my sincerity. Yesterday, I spent an entire night using my sword to force Grimm to dismantle all of his traps and explosives. Then, I spent an entire night suppressing them with brute force before they temporarily gave up on their goal. After being tricked by those scoundrels, I didn't sleep well for half a night. Before the sun even rose, I went out alone. Since these scoundrels are too unreliable, I should hurry up and find someone reliable. After sorting out the history of the Ottoman Empire, I found a few future experts who should be in the capital but haven't developed yet. This time, in order to recruit a few more normal people, I reluctantly crossed off a few names. The rest are all future heroes who are worthy of respect regardless of reputation, strength, or character. However, What surprised me was that when I visited 2 families in the morning, there was no one at all. When I found the 3rd family, Swift Sword Svina D.I. Nelson, I was told that she went out early in the morning. I found it a little strange. Why would a swordswoman like Svina go there so early in the morning? Little brother, can you tell me where your sister went? Once is a coincidence, but 3 times is still a coincidence. Now that I asked the 2 families, they didn't give me any details. Now that the other party is a child who is easy to coax, I naturally won't let him off. Sister said that I can't say. Sister went to participate in the Guardian Knight selection. It's a foreign princess. Alright, as expected of a naughty child. The lollipops and toys that I prepared for Svina's most beloved little brother immediately made him throw his sister's orders to the back of his head. Guardian Knight. Princess. Svina is a female, can she do it? I couldn't help but laugh out loud. However, thinking about the life of this female hero that was mentioned in the walkthrough, I can understand a little. Swift Sword Svina, a descendant of a great noble family in the Ottoman Empire. A female swordsman whose family has fallen from grace. She has been determined to revitalize her family ever since she was young. She once disguised herself as a male knight and joined the army to seek a promotion. However, because her identity was exposed, she was chased out of the Kang Dragon Knight group that she was in charge of. It was obvious that this elder sister was fulfilling her historical goal in advance by pretending to be a man and participating in the selection for the Guardian Knight of a foreign princess. In comparison, as long as she could become the Guardian Knight of a foreign princess, she could at least get rid of her identity as a commoner and take a big step towards the goal of revitalizing her family. Wait, the Guardian Knight selection? Foreign princess? Little Tiago, do you know which country that foreign princess is from? I think it's something like Lan. I thought it through in an instant. My emotions boiled in my chest, and I couldn't hear the rest of his words. Desos. You have guts. Anger. Helpless. Fear. Despair. Renee was unable to use words to express her emotions. The noisy Ottoman Royal Colosseum in front of her and the countless cheers of the audience made her sink into a cold despair. Congratulations, respected Highness Renee. Your famous beauty has surpassed the obstacles of the Aestia Mountains. Look, the youngsters that came today are all not bad. You should be able to choose the most desirable Guardian Knight. Guardian Knight. My husband is chosen by you Ottoman people, why should he? The roar of anger swirled in her throat for a while before she swallowed it down. This sudden attack on the Guardian Knight selection didn't give her any time to react. If she were to say I didn't discuss this with you or I will never acknowledge the Guardian Knight that you chose, the other party would immediately take the opportunity to escalate it into a diplomatic incident, becoming the fuse needed for war. Looking at the smiles on the faces of the envoys from other countries, looking at their gazes of pity, helplessness, and envy, Renee knew that there was no point in asking them for help. They had all the emotions present, except for the lack of surprise. Obviously, they had already received the news long ago, but as the person involved, she had only received the news 2 hours ago. She didn't know what the Ottoman Empire had sacrificed, but the allies that they had been talking about yesterday suddenly changed their minds and unhesitatingly used her as a sacrifice. Renee was furious, but she didn't know who to vent her anger on. She knew that in a diplomatic situation, hysterical questioning would only cause others to look down on her and her country. Tears were a symbol of weakness and immaturity. Is this the relationship between countries that teacher was talking about? The bloody law of the jungle? Arrogant Ottoman people. One day, you will pay the price. The real king of winter wolves will tear your throats apart. All she could do was try her best to squeeze out a smile and remember the hateful faces in front of her in the bottom of her heart. The king of winter wolves, Desos, looked at the little girl in front of him playfully. In a rich noble family, a 14-year-old girl should still be at the age where she wouldn't wake up. The little girl in front of him gritted her teeth, lowered her head, and did her best to control herself. It was obvious that she had thought through everything in front of her. Facing such humiliation at such a young age, facing such a hopeless situation where he could possibly lose his lifelong happiness, it was already quite rare for him to be able to remain so calm. However, as his opponent, as a pebble that could stop his hegemony, he was still too inexperienced. The legendary might of being able to fight against 1,000 men was probably just a rumor. Cheers to the great alliance that is about to be established. Cheers to the young talents of our Ottoman Empire. Cheers to our amazingly charming Princess Renée. As the emperor took the lead to raise his cup, the golden cups filled with red wine were raised one by one. Many nobles smiled and raised their cups together. The only one who didn't fit in was the princess who was being blessed. She looked at them coldly, just like a wolf that was inspecting its prey from a high hill. Remembering the hatred and humiliation in front of her and looking for an opportunity to take revenge was the only thing she could do now. Everyone, I'm sorry. I'll go and touch up my makeup. But she was only a 14-year-old girl after all. Anger, despair, and grievance caused her eyes to inevitably turn red. Unwilling to shed tears in front of her enemies, she used the excuse of touching up her makeup to leave temporarily. And just as she walked down the platform, 2 burly guards followed her under Dasos's signal. Today, Renée was the main character. The Guardian Knight had to be decided on the spot. Dasos wouldn't allow any variables to happen. He couldn't let her run away. Soon, one of the guards waiting outside the toilet ran back to report. Only then did Dasos nod and turn his attention to the performance below. In Dasos's mind, he didn't mistreat any of the young princesses. The contestants below were all small nobles and elites among the commoners of the Ottoman Empire. He could also use this opportunity to pick out some talents. Of course, the children of the big nobles and the members of the royal family wouldn't participate in this kind of competition. While a princess from another country could bring honor and status, she was destined to be far away from the power center of the Ottoman Empire. The Guardian Knight selection followed the ancient tradition. It was a typical challenge tournament. The young knight would show off their knight's demeanor and outstanding martial arts skills to their beloved noble ladies. As long as they displayed enough strength, the loser would also be praised. And the 2 legends arranged by their officials, after confirming that there weren't any dark horses that could threaten their seeded contestants, they readily admitted defeat. After all, the 2 legend uncles weren't young anymore. It would be a little too much for them to bully a little girl. Now that it was the quarterfinals, those who were able to reach this stage were at least gold-ranked warriors, and the Rain Swallow Sword Svina was one of them. The future emperor of the Ottoman Empire was raising his cup to admire the love of his people. Suddenly, looking at the storm-like swordsman, he frowned slightly. He called for his servant and whispered a few words into his ear. And just when the nobles of the Ottoman Empire were looking at the performance with satisfaction, no one could guess what this foreign princess who was already seen as a piece of meat on the chopping board was thinking. At this moment, in the dressing room of the VIP lounge, the girl was crying in front of the dressing mirror. She was sobbing silently. After all, she was only 14 years old. And a year ago, she was still a carefree princess. Now, the cruel international war was all pressing on her young shoulders. One wrong step and the country would be destroyed. When she thought of her family and citizens who trusted her in her hometown, when she thought of the humiliation she was about to face, she burst into tears. Father, Sister Kelly, I'm really an unqualified princess. Then, do you need strength? Strength that is enough to change fate. The voice suddenly sounded out of nowhere. That gentle voice that went straight to the soul made Renée instinctively trust it, as though it was a revelation from her ancestors and the gods. Yes, as long as I can change everything, even if I have to give up everything including my soul, I am willing. Who are you? What did you do to me? All right, the suggestion spell has been broken, but I already got the answer. But I shook my head. Sigh, you must be the descendant of Cavendish. You are really stupid, to reveal everything at the start of the deal. You didn't even see the other party's trump card and you are willing to give up everything including your soul. Any demon can cheat you of everything. You fail. You. Who are you? The soundproof barrier prevented the scream from coming out. Before the girl lost consciousness, the last thing she saw was a face that was exactly the same as her and a familiar voice. Sleep for a while. This burden is indeed a little heavy for you. I will help you carry some of it. However, you scored 0 in this pop quiz. Young man, remember to work hard and prepare for the makeup test. The selection for the Guardian Knight had already entered the finals. Both sides of the duel were outstanding young knight. The tall and burly Carter was the squadron leader of the Ottoman Empire's Azure Dragon Knight Squadron. At the age of 27, he relied on his outstanding martial arts and his myth-ranked weapon Beastman Crusher heavy hammer to charge his way through to the finals. His opponent, the young nameless swordsman, was the type of swordsman that he hated the most. Initially, Carter was a little worried when he realized that this swordsman who was as handsome as a woman was obviously stronger than him. But at this moment, a piece of good news fell from the sky and he was overjoyed. As expected, the moment the duel started, the swordsman became timid. You still intend to become a Guardian Knight? Do you have such a function? Yes, the news that he received was that his opponent for the duel was actually a woman. If the Guardian Knight was a woman, then the plans of the Ottoman Empire would naturally be a joke. Females couldn't leave behind offspring, so wouldn't it be equivalent to giving the other party a knight for free? Svina, who received the warning, could only grit her teeth and face the ridicule of her opponent. She had just received a secret letter from the royal servant. She thought it was a recruitment notice and was very happy. She didn't expect her identity to be exposed and she was warned not to win the championship. She wanted to win and had the confidence to win. But to go against the will of the emperor in the Ottoman Empire? Was she tired of living? Thus, the result of the last duel was already determined before it even started. On the spectator stand, the Princess Renee who had finished dressing up returned. It was still the same face and the same knight's battle dress. But this time, her temperament was slightly different. If Princess Reine's tearless look reminded others of a young bird, the current Princess Reine had a smile on her face as she walked over. Her footsteps were steady and her confidence and pride reminded others of an eagle patrolling its prey. Sorry to keep everyone waiting. Not at all, not at all. Unknowingly, when the pair of smiling eyes looked at them, the leaders of the small countries who had just betrayed the alliance felt an inexplicable sense of guilt. In less than 5 minutes, she was like a completely different person. Even Dasos was a little surprised. Ah, that swordsman is actually a woman. Why can a woman participate as well? The winner is Carter Tears. But at this moment, the outcome of the battle had already been decided. The hesitant Svina was hit on the shoulder by a heavy hammer. Her hair was tightly bound and scattered. At the same time that her identity as a female was revealed, she naturally lost the chance to continue competing. The 2-meter-tall burly Carter raised his heavy hammer and shouted loudly towards the spectator stand. He looked like a gorilla that had just received an award. There were already people criticizing the combination of the beast and the woman. But Princess Renee smiled. Since she is my guardian knight, then she should at least be stronger than me. Can I try personally? How can you dirty your highness's hands? Your highness is more suited to embroidery in a warm room. You should leave the rough work of leading troops to war to a man. Dasos smiled, but his words were very impolite. He even mocked that the other party was only suitable to be a good wife and loving mother. Even if he had always felt that Renee's battle achievements were fake propaganda, how could he give his opponent the opportunity to turn the tables at this moment? One strike is enough. I just want to see if he is really as strong as he looks. If he is just a wax spearhead that looks like silver, then wouldn't I be at a disadvantage in the future? The young lady stuck out her tongue lightly, looking indescribably cute. But this dirty pun that was completely incompatible with her previous image caused an uproar in the crowd. But since Renee had already spoken to this extent, if he still didn't give in, it would seem like the Ottoman Empire was being stingy. Thus, Dasos nodded his head. Then, the attendant understood and began to announce loudly. Now, our brave warrior, Knight Carter, will welcome a new challenge. The respected Princess Renee will personally test his strength. Phew, in order to prevent our powerful knight from injuring the lovely Princess Highness, Carter will receive 3 strikes from the princess in this test. If Knight Carter is able to block them, a new guardian knight will be born. Alright, this attendant obviously understood the meaning of the king's words. He made it sound like Princess Renee couldn't put down her pride and insisted on going through the motions. The original 1 strike became 3 strikes. It seemed very open-minded, but while there was no difference in essence, It was actually a kind of arrogance and confidence. And the final guardian knight will be born was even more direct, not giving any way out. Carter, good job. Your Highness Renee, please have mercy. Ha ha ha. The arena was filled with mockery and noise. Everyone saw the 3 strikes test as a farce. Even Carter himself was smiling foolishly and nodding his head, as if the princess had agreed to marry him. But Renee laughed. It's a pity that I didn't bring a weapon. Your Majesty, can I borrow your sword? Of course, as long as you can use it. Dasos handed over his sword with ill intentions. This blood-red legendary weapon was famous for its arrogance. He was waiting to see Renee make a fool of herself. Demon Sword, Scarlet Conqueror, was the sword of the Emperor of the Ottoman Empire. It was a legendary weapon, and it only submitted to the true conqueror. The weak wouldn't even have the chance to touch it. If they forced themselves to use it, they would only become a slave to the demon sword. There were already a few unlucky fellows who had their blood sucked by the demon sword. The Ottoman people who knew about this sword were waiting to see the little princess make a fool of herself. Thank you for your generosity, Your Majesty. Ah, what a naughty little fellow. But, a good child is one who listens obediently. But what was unbelievable was that the expected shriek and release of her hand didn't happen. In that delicate hand, the red demon sword suddenly glowed brightly. The next moment, the glow was retracted, and all the blood-red light gathered at the tip of the sword. It had entered into a battle state, and it was even more obedient than a pet dog that had met its owner. As the owner of the demon sword, Dasos couldn't believe it. He had never seen the demon's sword in such a respectful manner before. The Scarlet Conqueror only obeyed the ambitious conqueror. Could it be that in the eyes of the demon's sword, this little girl was a stronger conqueror than him? Sensing that the situation wasn't good, Dasos wanted to stop her, but it was too late. Renee didn't walk up the stairs to the dueling ring. Instead, she slowly walked to the edge of the spectator stand and raised her head to look at the blue sky. How many years has it been? The Mist bloodline has been guarding the borders of the human world. The blood and lives of countless tribesmen have been exchanged in exchange for suspicion and enmity. One of Renee's feet had already stepped onto the guardrail. A commotion broke out in the surroundings. The servants, who were worried that she would commit suicide, had already rushed forward. However, a tangible holy light gushed out from her back, preventing them from getting close. How many times has it been? Before that bloody wound could heal, new despicable traitors would add a new wound to it. The Sacred Alliance is being torn apart like a piece of scrap paper. A moving voice reverberated in the spectator stand. Even though it was just an ordinary sentence, it seemed to possess a magical power, causing the traitors to suffer a purgatory-like interrogation of their conscience. Don't you all just want to know the secrets of the Mist royalty? All right, I will tell you then. The Mist royalty contains the power of God. God's grace, war angel transformation. The holy light gushing out from her back turned into a pair of tangible wings. Renee had already leaped out of the spectator stand. Floating in mid-air, under the gaze of the crowd, she was enveloped by endless radiance, completing the transformation from a mortal to a war angel. Different from the new generation of angels who became god envoys in the recent times, this ancient war angel was personally created by the goddess of order. She was the vanguard of the crusade against the malevolent gods of chaos, the ruler of the entire angel tribe. The golden wings represented the endless power of order, the blazing holy flames represented judgment, and the golden holy runes that covered her entire body were inscribed with countless laws of the world. In the distant ancient times, the opponents of the war angel could only be the stronger malevolent gods and demon lords. The golden wings spread out and the ring of flames on her head blazed fiercely. The pure flames actually fused with the blood-red glow of the magic sword. With a flap of her wings, the angel Renee appeared in the sky above Carter. My guardian knight. Laughable mortal, do you know your sins? I. Facing the interrogation of the war angel, Carter wavered. Under the repeated propaganda of the various churches, the image of angels as the messengers of the gods of order had long been deeply ingrained in the hearts of the people. It was rare to see the messengers of the true gods in this world, and as a mortal, he actually attempted to gain the favor of an angel. Isn't this a crime? Alright, he doesn't need to use I anymore. Renee didn't even wait for his reply and swung the blood-red flaming heavy sword down. Clang. What was unbelievable was that Carter actually used his heavy hammer to block the heavy sword. As the two weapons clashed, sparks flew in all directions. I blocked it. I actually blocked it. Why aren't you all cheering for me? I am the victor. With just 2 more strikes, I would be able to marry the princess. But immediately, he knew the reason. He did block the blade of the sword, but the holy flames on it had already spread along the point where the two weapons clashed, turning him into a blazing torch. He didn't even have the time to scream before he was turned into ashes. A guardian knight who had just been promoted was killed by the person he was loyal to. In an instant, the huge arena became silent, and the atmosphere turned cold. Ch, overestimating yourself, a toad lusting after the swan's flesh. Maintaining the incarnation of the war angel consumed too much energy. In a short span of 10 seconds, it drained all of Renee's stamina and power of order. As she retracted her wings, Renee turned back into a mortal. Clap, clap, clap. What followed was Desos's applause and maniacal laughter. Ha ha ha, indeed overestimating himself. How can a mortal like him be worthy of becoming your guardian knight? Desos, who was walking closer, suddenly knelt down on one knee. Then, beautiful Princess Renee, I, the Emperor of the Ottoman Empire, Desos. Minute, may I have the honor of becoming your guardian knight? What? Without a doubt, this was equivalent to a marriage proposal on the spot. Furthermore, it was the emperor who was said to be uninterested in women. In an instant, discussions and exclamations filled the air. However, I frowned. It was me, not Renee. The real Renee had been thrown to Diana a long time ago. From the moment I returned from the toilet, I was the one who put on a show. Furthermore, the incarnation of the war angel was my race talent. Everything was still within my expectations, but Desos's confession was definitely unexpected. A confession from a man to another man is really disgusting. But at this moment, I couldn't help but consider it seriously. The marriage proposal of the emperor involved the dignity of the country. If it wasn't handled properly, a war might really break out. Since rejecting or accepting him directly wasn't an option, I would just have to do it my way. That's impossible. Why? As long as you agree, I am willing to use half of the kingdom as a betrothal gift. You can become the Empress of the Ottoman Empire. If we work together, we can obtain everything in this world. Isn't that much better than starving and freezing at the borders? Desos, who was rejected, turned into an enraged lion as he questioned me furiously. Because it was impossible for us to be together from the very start. I swear in the name of the holy light that I have no interest in men. I only like women. Alright, the commotion in the arena instantly cooled down. The emperor who had just proposed in front of everyone was tossed aside in such a pitiful manner. For a holy knight, a vow made in the name of the god who was the source of his power must be true. Otherwise, he would be fooling a true god and his god-given power would be stripped away. Judging from the vibrant holy light around that princess, she really wasn't lying. She really did like women. As for me, I walked straight towards the last person on the stage, Svina, who lost after her identity as a woman was exposed. Thank you to the Ottoman Empire for organizing the Guardian Knight selection for me, allowing me to have the chance to obtain this adorable knight. It's her. I lowered my head and kissed the forehead of this girl who had been scared silly, completing the final ritual of the Guardian Knight. The knight and the princess fell in love at first sight. A beautiful story was born. Congratulations, congratulations. Thousands of years later, there would be such a record in history. Renee Cheen missed. Her other name was more widely known, Lily Princess. It was said that as a woman, she had a 3-digit Lily harem. Svina D.I. Nelson is the head knight and head concubine of the Lily Princess. The above is purely fictional. If there are any similarities, it is purely a coincidence.